Okay, so I can trim off later on here, whatever we want to talk about beforehand. I'm going to just take a second. You guys, why don't you talk among yourself? Dr. Khan, are you new to our sessions here?
Yes, I am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm new and I'm from a university in Pakistan, and
Mhm.
my vice chancellor, university vice chancellor, shared it with me. So this is my first time with you guys,
Uh-huh.
and I'm here to learn some values about implementing some things to improve the education system of the underdeveloped countries
Mhm. Now,
within limited resources and limited time.
yes, what subjects are you teaching or involved with?
I am a PhD in control engineering, and my research interest is computer vision and machine learning.
Uh-huh.
So, in the university, we have undergraduate programs in electronic engineering, computer science, and power engineering.
Mhm.
I usually teach instrumentation and measurement, linear control systems, mostly engineering related subjects, mostly related to machine learning or artificial intelligence or control engineering. So, these
Oh,
are
okay.
the areas that relate to my interests.
Okay, good. I think you'll find some topics here because we are going to be discussing the intersection between artificial intelligence and automation and education. So that's going to be the main topic of today. Hello, Fatima. Welcome.
Great, great.
Fatima, is this your first time with us as well? Oh, I think she stepped away for a second. Okay, and then you guys talk a little bit among yourselves. I just need to go and do a setup for a screen sharing that I want to do with you shortly.
So, Dr. Khan, you might be interested to know that in 1972, when I graduated from engineering school, my focus was human factors engineering at that time. That's what it was called. The relationship between man and machine, displays, controls, systems that include both, and how to design them better. That was what I really wanted to do, and I couldn't find a job in it. So 2 years later, I became a lawyer.
That's tragic.
Yes.
Did you do
It,
law all your life?
30 years, and I retired a little early. But the training and the initial work helped give me a lot of systems thinking and analysis and structure. And then when I went to law school, it was a whole different way of thinking, but I combined the two, which was very useful.
Right. That's good.
Yeah, it's been a good life.
Mm.
Hi, Joan.
Good morning. I just went to get coffee and my husband started talking to me.
How are you, Joan?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah.
May I just spend 2 minutes just talking about the water um, event that's coming up? So I finally heard back from, I had sent an email, and sorry I wasn't on the call last week. And so they didn't want a panel and they were trying to figure out how it could be done. So what they're doing is the 24 hours, and on our session, the North American session, anyone can come in and talk about their projects or give input. So it's basically a research project to collect information for, I guess, water professionals. And I want them to, in my session, I'm going to focus a lot on actions. So I think I gave everyone the link if you want to register and participate in that 2 hour North American event. Now, what the other thing that came out of it, the suggestion was that we could put together as a group an event, and they would host it for us separately with the UN, if that's something, because we did have a lot of interest from this group to participate. So I don't know if that's something you guys would like to talk about another time.
With you, and who would be the listening audience?
Um, I think the community, but we would talk about that. I think the UN is looking at using AI, believe it or not, they talked a lot about that. Using AI to have data so that they can. I think it would be the UN, but I'm not sure. Maybe communities. We could dictate what that is. I personally know a lot of water projects that are out there, and they seem to all be in silos. And I think this group's kind of wants to put everything together, which I think is a great idea if we can ever do things like that. So anyway, that was a suggestion.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
can't. Oh, there we are.
Other organizations are trying to get collaboration and data sharing and regional and
Yeah, yeah,
countrywide work.
yeah. I think the UN, personally, I think it's on a global scale in that sense. So anyway, sorry, Bill, I just wanted to mention that.
No problem, no problem. Let's see what we got. Just another minute and we will formally begin.
Oh,
Okay. Well, why don't we just begin here? Ding. My name is Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, and I declare this meeting on 14 June 2025 to be open. The topic for today's meeting, we know our club is a little different than a lot of other clubs. First of all, like all Rotary clubs, we seek to be the greatest service to our community. However, in our case, with members around the world, our community is the world. And then we seek to be of that greatest service. What do we feel would be the greatest service? And that would be to help protect our community from the severe and potentially existential consequences of some of the major problems facing our community, i.e., the world. And so, in that regard, a lot of people look at it and says, "Oh, your club's mission is simple: solve all the world's problems for all people everywhere." And yes, that is true. That's why our club is the tagline for our club is the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. So that's how we see ourselves. We feel we can't leave out any of the major problems facing the world because we don't know which problem is going to come and cause the greatest problems for people. So because of that, we have to be looking and watching out for all of them. Among the major problems facing the world right now, there's three that really stand out that are existential for the world. Obviously, one is the environment and climate control. If we don't solve that, there are many models that project that at certain points of time we're going to hit tipping points, and which the Earth could become uninhabitable for humans. The second area is conflict, especially conflict with nuclear weapons. And we are at a severe risk. We see there's a greater willingness of people to engage in violent conflict around the world. And there are people that I guess could be pushed to the point where they say, "Hey, I've got nothing to lose. Let's take the rest of the world with us." So this is a potential danger that we have out there that is something we really have to pay attention to. And the third area is artificial intelligence, where there are many projections that are really severe, including AI becoming independent and just deciding on its own what it thinks the world should look like in the future, and deciding that humans are a major disadvantaging component or a major risk for the world, and the world would be better off without the humans. And that's the extreme case. But a less extreme case is the idea that, hey, we can solve all the problems. We can eliminate all the diseases. If we eliminate all the diseases, then we don't need the doctors, and the robots will be able to do everything we want, and AI can make all the decisions. So why on earth do we don't need humans to do anything? Now, a lot of people in the technology field will tell you that's what we're shooting for. We want to eliminate all jobs for humans. Why? Because it's unfair that a human should have to work for their survival. Survival should not be dependent on whether you've got a good job or you don't have a good job. So if we can have go into an era of abundance, which is the way it's formulated by the tech leaders in the world, then the AI and the robots can provide everything that humans need everywhere in the world. And therefore, humans are freed from having to work for their existence. And then they're freed to pursue their passions. If your passion is to play golf all day, go play golf all day. If your passion is you want to perform as a musician or as a dancer or whatever, go do that because you're not dependent on that providing you with an income that you can live off of. You're able to pursue your passions without that pressure. If you are into arts, do that. If you are want to explore things, you want to do research and things, you can do that with you can even enlist the assistance of AI and to help you pursue your passions in those directions. So anyway, those are major things. But right below that, we have a whole bunch of issues that currently are there, uh, such as wash rag or water and sanitation, which is lacking in a lot of the world, is an immediate need. We can say education. And we see education as a very special case because education can provide is almost a prerequisite. Having a certain level of understanding of what's happening in the world and why things are happening in the world and what can be done about them is really a prerequisite for taking action to improve those situations, even including how we might transition to a post-labor economy and to a AI supported economy. Uh, it takes an understanding of what the options are and what's going on there, or to have our democratic processes so humans have agency that requires a certain amount of understanding of what's taking place in the world to be able to have objective opinions on what's the future we want in the world. So, at any rate, we've been focusing a lot in the last year on artificial intelligence because uh, pretty much everybody you talk to says this is the most urgent issue. Although one could argue right now, conflict and geopolitics is rearing its head again and could go in a minute. But the one that is almost assuredly going to come within a relatively short time of a couple of years, otherwise is AI. So we've been talking about a lot of AI, both from the perspective of helping people understand what is AI really capable of, and what is it likely to be capable of in a very, very near future. And what does that mean for us? What does that mean for how we do things? Because we know how we would have done things 10 years ago, let's say. Are we just repeating what we knew in the past and ignoring that the ground under our feet might be changing, and therefore the methods that we've been pursuing that are based on a certain style of life and situation in the world may no longer apply in just a couple of years. And so we should be making sure we're aware of that and knowing, okay, if that happens, what's our plans? What's our plans to transition to new things that are needed? What's our plan for living in that world? What's our plan for doing the things that we want to do in such a world that is likely to come? So some of the things that we do in the world, if we've got a job, let's say we're a film editor, Okay. Then if there's a new technique out there, I can apply that new technique next week or next year. But if we're looking here at a 2 or 3 year old child, the preparation time related to that is more likely 15 to 18 years or so. We have to think differently when we look and know what's there and what is likely to come in the future. Uh, and then we have to take a look and realize that whatever the future might hold on those things, there's issues that exist right now today that are critical for that. And that is, for example, the fact that 2 out of every 3 10-year-olds in the world can't even read effectively. And even if we look in countries like the United States, eighth grade reading proficiency is less than 40%. Less than 40% of our eighth graders in the United States can read effectively. And I think some of you have heard that about, oh, it's getting on almost 40 years ago now that I spent 3 years visiting and talking to educators around the United States on why we had the situations that we had. But one of the things that really sort of shocked me, and I was doing that because I had just recently moved my family from Europe to the United States. And my son, who is only 12, going to one of the so-called best school districts in the United States, the faculty town of a major university, came home one day and said, it's interesting here. I'm taking the same math I did 3 years earlier in Germany. So at 12, in the best school districts, one of the best school districts in the United States, he's doing the same math he had done 3 years earlier in Germany. So that was one of the triggers that got me traveling around speaking to the better part of 1,000 educators in probably about a dozen states in the United States. But along that trip, one of the things that surprised me is I visited an adult literacy program. And that these were adults that could not read and were there to learn to read. And I found out that almost every single one of them had a high school diploma. So I'm thinking to myself, how can we go and have an entire group like that, uh, having completed high school without being able to read? That just didn't fit my mind. So as we look and I've been involved in studying education, not here, but in other countries as well, as to what are the causes and where have things been successful in improving education? And along the way, we played a little bit of a mind game. We said here, what if we asked teachers to pledge to get 100% of their students to be at 100% grade level? In other words, what if we went to, let's say, a seventh grade math teacher, and we went and said, would you pledge to get 100% of your students to be at 100% grade level by the end of the year? Now, the town I live in, the answer would almost assuredly be, sure, that's what I do. I think we have got something like 94, 96% of the high school graduates in our high school go on to four-year universities. Uh, so they no problem. But if I was to go to the capital of the state of New Jersey, Trenton, or go to a city like Camden, just across the river from Philadelphia, and I was to ask that same question, the answer would probably be, are you crazy? Yeah, that teacher in that community, that wealthy community, yeah, they can pledge to do that because almost 100% of their students start the school year grade level ready. But almost 100% of my students start the school year 2, 3, and 4 years behind grade level in our subject. It's unfair that you even ask me to achieve the same results given the different starting point. And then we say, well, but if we could assure you that all your students would start the school year grade level ready as well, would you then be willing to pledge to get the 100% of your students to the next level? And the feeling is the answer would be sure, no problem in that case. So we realized that a major problem in the difference between the education outcomes in different schools here, at least in New Jersey, which I think is very typical for the US and many of the European countries as well, many developed countries, is what is the state of preparedness of the students going into a school year. And if we take that thinking here, that one of the most important factors for success in a class is whether or not the students have all the prerequisite knowledge to be successful in that class at that level. So it turns out that the Bloomberg Foundation, Bloomberg was a former mayor of New York and he's a multi-billionaire, and his foundation funded a study that was done in several cities, but particularly in Providence, Rhode Island, where they put microphones on babies to be able to track how many words and what words children are hearing in the first early years of their life. And one of the things that they came up with is that there was a really stark difference between working and welfare class families and children from middle and upper class families. And the difference was as great as 30 million words. The children from working and welfare class families hear up to 30 million fewer words during the first 3 years of their life. Now, that's not saying 30 million different words. It's meaning 30 million words in total. But there's also a significant difference in the kind of words that children from the working and welfare class families, almost everything they heard were commands. Don't touch that. Don't do this. Go do that. Whereas the children from the middle and upper classes, it was more about everything. And so they were exposed to a lot more. And what this led to is by the time children are coming into kindergarten or first grade, there's up to a 2-year difference in mental maturity and verbal vocabulary skills. So those children that are coming from those working and welfare class families, and we have to remember, primary schools are neighborhood based. And neighborhoods typically break down by socioeconomic backgrounds. So that you see that schools in lower socioeconomic backgrounds, we cluster all the kids that are years behind in their preparation for school, and then we cluster all the kids that are really well prepared in other schools. But then we come along and say, our education system, we've got to really be fair to everybody. So it's very important that our curriculums that we call for, they have to be equally implemented in every school for every child. So now we've got children here, and it's not just the 2 years, because in my town, we have about 12 to 15 really exclusive preschools where kids go. They are taught bilingual English, usually English and Mandarin or something like that. They're reading at chapter length by the time they get to kindergarten. They've got all the basic arithmetic and a lot of other general knowledge and preparations before they ever get to kindergarten. So those kids are typically 2 years ahead of just average when they come into kindergarten or their first year. So we've got a total of up to 4 years difference in the preparation of children entering that first year of school. And then we turn around and say, but you've got to teach them the same thing, whether prepared or not. And so by the time these kids get to fourth grade, we see that we have in the top 10% of schools, the average number of students at grade level in math, for example, in fourth grade is 92%. And the bottom 10% of primary schools in the state, the average percentage of students at grade level is less than 6%. So this huge gap. So a major part of that gap is, hey, if you started 4 years, up to 4 years difference in your preparation And just let's just take reading as an example. And now we're going to go and teach you to read phonetically on the assumption that if we teach you how to pronounce this little group of symbols here that we call letters, you're going to recognize the word you just pronounced to yourself and you're going to know it. But these kids who don't have the verbal vocabulary, they don't know it. So the whole philosophy and approach does not work for the kids in these bottom 10% of schools. And which is why we see the same schools from the same neighborhoods in that bottom 10% year after year after year. Now, a district attorney in California who did a study was comparing the situations in schools in Europe and the United States. And one of the things he noted was that you could come up with a formula that showed, based on success in schools, the likelihood that a person is going to spend time in prison. And if I take his formula, which is based on what's the dropout rate and everything, and I take that back down to where the dropout rates are high, what's the preparedness level of kids coming into school, or where are they at the fourth grade, let's say, you're able to come up and say we have schools, primary schools, where 1 out of every 3 African American boys entering first grade, 6 years old, or maybe 5 years if it's kindergarten, up to 1 out of every 3 is statistically damned to spend a year in prison before they're 30 years old. And we have 73,000 children just in New Jersey in such schools. So it's not about the individual student at that point, because if you've got an overwhelming preponderance of children coming from these disadvantaged backgrounds in a school, it's very, very difficult for the school to succeed. And we looked at playing another mind game. We said, well, because the typical answer of politicians, especially politicians that are not local, is, oh, it's got to be the teachers. If this school is failing and that school is succeeding, the difference must be the teachers. So we played a little mind game and said, what would happen if we were to take the teachers from the best performing primary school in the state, and we'll swap them out with the teachers in the worst performing primary school in the state? If it's up to the teachers, we should see a massive jump in achievement in a very short time. Well, I was asking AI about that and the causes of why we have these disparities, and their answer was probably the only thing we'd be likely to see is the teachers from that top performing school quitting the teaching profession if they have to teach in one of these lower schools. The other big answer that you typically get, well, yeah, these schools in these underperforming communities, they're underfunded. But when we took a look, we saw that some of the highest funded schools that are spending the most money per child were those worst performing schools. Those worst performing schools were spending up to 40% more per student than the best performing schools. So we said, well, maybe maybe it's not the teachers, maybe it's not the funding. So what is it? Well, we know that the preparation factor is huge. If there's a potentially 4-year difference between children starting in primary schools in these low-income neighborhoods, it shouldn't surprise us that we have this kind of a result. So at any rate, we said, well, one of the things that would make the biggest difference would be, what if we could ensure that every student reaching kindergarten, reaching that first year, was equally prepared? If that's like going, when we talked to the hypothetical seventh grade teacher about, would you pledge to get 100% of your students to grade level by the end of the year? And the idea was that, hey, if I can start off with students who are grade level ready, yes, then I will agree to do that. So the question came, could we do something that would result in the children from these poor communities, poor neighborhoods, uh, being equally grade level ready by the time they hit kindergarten or first grade? Now, the U.S. has a program. U.S. Department of Education had, well, had maybe, I don't know if it's still going to exist, a thing called Head Start. And the idea of that was to enable children from lower socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to go to preschools and be equally prepared when they hit kindergarten. Well, unfortunately, there were some studies done a few years back that said the kids that went through Head Start, who were way ahead of the peers in their neighborhood that didn't go to Head Start, and were almost equally prepared as the children from the wealthy communities, that 4 years later, that whole advantage had evaporated, was gone. And as a result, there was a push under um, I think it was under President Trump in his first term, to kill the program and say, "Hey, it's not working. It's a waste of time. Why prepare students if they're not going to be capable of maintaining that advantage going forward?" Well, be that as it may, the problem is, even if we go, one of the things they looked at there was that only a certain share of the children in any neighborhood had the advantage of going to the Head Start preschool based on some kind of a lottery system, I think it was. And the result is, if you take a bunch of children, you prepare them to be great, and now you put them into a school where the majority of the students have not had that, and the school has to deal with the average. So obviously they got to go down to the level of the least prepared students, and that's what causes the students that had the better preparation to lose that advantage here in a relatively short time. So the we're looking and saying, okay, we need to find a way to be able to enable every child to be prepared for school when they get to school. Now, this is something here that when we take a look at countries, let's say Pakistan, for example, or any of the developing countries, and we look there and say very few kids ever go to school, and but the dropout rate during primary school is huge, and usually by sixth grade, they've lost a very large percentage of the students. And a big chunk of that is because the students are not successful in primary school. And so their parents and everybody starts saying, why bother? What's the purpose of this if they're not going to be able to be successful? And one of the biggest issues is, in a great number of countries, the local language that children first learn is not the language that is taught in the schools. And that is equally here in countries like the United States and in European countries, that due to the heavy migration, that we see a lot of children reaching school that have had comparatively less exposure to that the language that's used in the schools there. The families don't speak the school language in their homes. So when we look at a country like Pakistan, where you've got many regional languages, and then they hit school, and now they're expected to be fully competent in Urdu, that's not the case for a lot of kids. And then those kids, they are not successful in the first couple of years, and their parents say, no, you should, let's do a job. There's no benefit for you to go to the school. And especially if you're in a country where the kids, where they have to pay for the kids to go to school, even if it's only for uniforms and textbooks, for example. So, at any rate, the question was, what can we do that's affordable? because Pakistan's got 32 million children not in school. It's either the highest or second highest number of children out of school in the world. So when you look and say, well, what would it cost to provide effective education to 32 million more children in Pakistan? Pakistan doesn't have the GDP to be able to support that. Right now, I don't remember what it was, but I think here the amount that is budgeted for primary schools in Pakistan is something like only $1 or a couple of dollars per child per year. So the even adding no, well, yeah, because most of the education budget is going to secondary schools and to universities. But at any rate, the problem is how do we find something we can afford? So we started off talking to AI and asking AI, okay, we know that children who attend preschool in the United States, these wealthier preschools, those are the most successful kids in K through 12 education. Way, way higher success rate than average. So, well, what if we went and put every single child in the country through the preschool, through one of these preschools? We subsidized it and said, okay, you're all going to preschool. If we did that, uh, what would difference would that make? And it came back saying the amount of money was to do that, even in the United States, would be obscene, and it would be even much more difficult in developing countries. But it came back in saying it would be transformational. If every single student were to complete an education level where they are university ready. Now, keep in mind, in the United States, 40% of American students that go on to university require remedial education to be able to handle university level work. But imagine if 100% of all children were to reach the completion of secondary school with a 95% average, let's say. That would totally transform everything. So when we said if we were to take every single child and let them go through the same preschool as the wealthiest communities have, where I live, 90% plus of all children attend preschool from, let's say, 2 to 4 before going into kindergarten. So just imagine that if we were able to go into the school districts that currently have more than 90% of the kids can't even do first grade work when they get to school, that would just totally change that situation, and it would raise the balance. And it came back saying what were all the socioeconomic benefits, the health care, because you have informed community, the health costs would go way down, the costs for security, policing, prosecution, incarceration would go way, way down. The costs of the productivity of everybody would go way up, and the GDP would go way up if everybody was prepared to that level. Um, and But the cost was basically not it couldn't be paid. Even in a wealthy country like the United States, it would be very difficult to provide every single child with that level. Given that right now, when we look at eighth grade, more than 70% of children in the United States are not competent in at grade level in eighth grade. Okay, so it's less, not 70%, pardon me, 60%. It's less than 40% of children nationwide, according to the national the NAEP, which is called the nation's report card on the status of the education. Okay, so so the question is, if that's not going to work, what are some of our options? So I said, okay, given we say one of the most valuable things parents can do is just read to your children every night, every day. Read to your children. Spend an hour, read to your children. Talk to your children. And we know that would result in a huge benefit. But if you're in a household where maybe it's a migration household or whatnot, and maybe the parents never had a chance to get an education, maybe they can't read themselves, or maybe they can't speak English. So their ability to do that reading, or they're holding down two jobs because that's what it takes to be able to feed their family, take care of their family. So they just literally just don't have the time. And if they don't have the time and they have to take their kids, they're collecting the kids and having a neighbor watch out for the kids who are just warehousing, sit them in front of a TV. Just you just want them quiet. You don't want them killing each other. You just want to keep them behaved. And so there's no educational component into that. So if that's the case, if just so we ask the question, if the parents would just read an hour a day, how much of a difference would that make for those children? And in the school language, read an hour a day by the time those children are ready to hit the first year in school. And what it came back with was that that could cut the discrepancy, the disparity of children going into kindergarten in half, in half. So we then said, okay, now what if we're putting the kids into daycare where there's a supervision, but there's no educational component. There are no enrichment component. And it said, okay, if they would do the reading here, that would give us an equal benefit. And then we compared that to the full preschool capabilities. But then we said, okay, we can't afford that, but what about AI? AI is improving all the time. So could AI read to the kids? Just do that. Just read to the kids. Could AI, and we asked just that question, just if they just read to the kids. Now I want to see if I can bring up and share my screen. Um, I think it's this. Oh, okay. Well, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but that's okay. So okay, can all of you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what this did here is I wanted to take a step through, but maybe this is better so that we can get through this basic thing before Stu has to leave. So I said, okay, a nanny. A nanny is the equivalent of let's say a parent. This could be a nanny, but it could be the person who's watching the kids in a daycare, in an informal daycare, versus the kids being able to go to preschool where there is a curriculum at least, versus what an AI avatar would be able to do. So the 3 year from 2 to 5, let's say, impact on early childhood preparation. So it said, okay, if you got an AI avatar with emotional expression and adaptive interactivity, uh, would dramatically outperform typical caregivers. And so is what they would gain in different things. And the preschool teachers provide significant gains, but vary in scalability and so forth. So it came up with this chart. And this chart here, what it is the red is what a nanny or the average parent or that daycare caregiver or supervisor would be able to deliver in the readiness of children going into school. The yellow is what the typical preschool teacher, including these wealthy preschools in the communities like where I live, and the blue is the AI. What it came back with was that an AI avatar, would do a tremendously better job even than the professional uh, 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 preschool teacher that is achieving such a great result right now with the students they're teaching, but the AI would do even a better job at that. And overall, when we looked at the preparation consistency, it's twice as good as what that preschool would be able to provide students. So we look at here receptive vocabulary. That is the ability to understand a story being read to them. Expressive vocabulary is the child's ability to express themselves verbally. The narrative thinking is being able to comprehend and really make sense out of what they're hearing. Executive function is the ability to decide and think on what's own. Expand attention span, self-regulation, the social emotional growth here. That's, by the way, interesting to see that that's that and just the receptive understanding what's read to them. Those are the highest areas of success in preschools. And then curiosity and questioning was another one. Learning confidence, the confidence in the ability to learn, and then the consistency across all the entire spectrum here that one could expect. Uh, we see here that the AI scored a 9 or a 10 in every field. The executive function was perhaps the weakest one, but it's still higher than even the preschool scored in any category here. That blew my mind. I would never. I was asking here what percentage of what preschools achieve would AI be able to do? I was thinking here, oh well, maybe we could get 90%, but at a much lesser cost. So that's where I was thinking. I'm thinking here, oh, preschool is like the best, and we want to see how close we can get to the achievement levels of preschool with AI. And I never would have expected here that AI would so outperform the even the preschool. Now, I should have had an inkling of this because some of you have heard me talk about the Alpha School in Austin, Texas. In the meantime, they have campuses in multiple states. That is a school system where they replaced all the human teachers with AI. And they went from a school day where they were spending 6, 7 hours in the day on academics to only spending 2 hours a day on academics. And in those 2 hours a day, that school is in the top 4% of all schools in the United States. So, yes.
Excuse me, to interrupt for one quick question. First, who put together this study? And second, what about the human touch, the personal connection that children receive?
Yes, that's the chart I was actually looking for before it jumped me to this one here because I had set up several, and when I went to share the screen, it went to this presentation. It actually here it came up that AI with avatars is better at establishing human connections than humans are. And this is sort of reinforced by you may have heard Yuval Harari, who came up with he's a historian, Israeli historian that has written 3 books that got a lot of attention talking about the evolution of man and communities and everything else. But his last book is very much about sort of the next generation of humanity. And the one thing he points out that because AI is trained to serve it's the human it's interacting with, it's trying to always make the human it's interacting with happy. And so when it goes in the communication here, we have to compare it always to the average. Right now, we have to remember when we talk about closing the education gap and we talk about it being mostly in that working in welfare class family where the gap is the greatest right now, these are kids that get no humanity. They basically the human interaction that they have is a very negative one. And in fact, when Finland first, I remember watching back about 15, maybe 20 years ago, when I first heard about the actions that Finland had taken that jumped their education performance so much. One of the big things that they wanted to do was make preschool available to every child, quality preschool available to every child. And I recall watching a couple of videos at that where they said a major reason for making it possible for every child to attend the preschool is they wanted to reduce the influence of the parents because they found in certain socioeconomic backgrounds the parental influence was negative. And so that contributed to a significant thing. But the bottom line is going back to what Yuval Harari said, that AI is typically a better human than the average human. And as a result, we see in things like character AI, which is where you can establish relationships with you create whatever entity you want it to be, a tutor, you want it to be a mentor, you want it to be a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. You create these entities there, and now you can spend your time chatting and talking to those entities based on whatever persona you gave them. That is the pretty much one of the hottest apps that are out there and on the internet now. So the human touch, yeah, it's important, but the conclusion that I got out of the report here is more or less the AI will do a better job of preparing children for human to human interaction than dealing with live humans.
My other question was, who did this study?
This study is a whole bunch. It's because this went out in AI. It came back and listed there. I've got the citations and the studies. A big one. There's three different studies that were done uh, regarding the early childhood influence prior to starting school. I forget the name of the study, but the funder of the big one that I knew already many years ago is Providence Talks, where they gave put the microphones on all the babies and tracked the words and things like that. But there were two other similar studies that were quoted in coming up with these that fed into all these charts. So but there's probably about 300 to 400 sources that fed into these because this was the result of deep researches. I did deep researches on all of this, and I didn't create this chart. It came back after explaining to me for each. Let me see if I can find that one because I think it's worthwhile. Well, before I go there, I just want to go here. This is the one that compares the on a 0 to 10 scale the explain those numbers. But this is the comparison here between low cost daycare, state preschools such as the Abbott daycare model in New Jersey, and AI enhanced daycare. This here we see those from that other chart that the enhanced AI enhanced daycare would get you to 9 out of 10 points. The preschool gets you to 5.8, and the low cost daycare is at 2.4 in terms of the performance. This is the annual cost per child on average, 8,000 for daycare, 14,000 for the state preschool. Now that's the state preschool. It's actually about 25,000 for private preschool, for example, like in the community where I'm at. And then it's showing 1,500 for the AI enhanced daycare. That's because you've got human supervisors plus the facilities plus the AI equipment. But we see that the performance, the results versus the cost, the ROI is tremendously higher for AI enhanced daycare. As I said, it's not like it's crazy. When it went through and explained, okay, here's the things that AI enhanced daycare would be able to do. It had it reading to the children. It had it and reading. Okay, I do have to find that out one because it actually gave some sample scripts of the exchanges there showing uh, what the discussion was. Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Bear with me just a second here. I'm just trying to get uh by the way, I did this after looking at it in the States. I went and asked it to do comparison to three countries. Four countries: Pakistan, Ghana, Rwanda, and DR Congo. Um, and um, okay, this is perhaps if I can now switch over and share this screen. Um, Okay, I'm actually sharing here one of the reports, a detailed comparison of degree of school readiness after 3 years of development supports, ages 2 to 5, from three different sources. So it came in with these points: receptive vocabulary, the impact here of the average parent or nanny or daycare, just regular daycare would be 500 to 1,000 root words different. Professional preschool teacher would get us to 1,500 to 2,500 keywords. And the advanced AI avatar would get us to 2,500 to 4. So it gets into expressive vocabulary, the narrative, these same functions that we were looking before. Um, that would take us into all of these self-regulation, questioning, and curiosity, and so forth. So that was one of the things that it came up with. Um, this is here if it became an avatar over just standard AI, if it was able to show emotion, how that increases the standard AI tutor could get us to having low-income children fully ready 68 to 80%, but it would take us to 85 to 95% if we had an emotionally expressive one. And so came up with impact on hard to reach children, went into a lot of different things. Where I'm trying to go to here, oh, here, this is it. So this is a daily interactive AI session here coming up. So the characters, a child, Emma, 4 years old, an AI student tutor called Navi, that's warm and cheerful and adaptive with expressive voice and an animated avatar. So in minute 1 to 3, the AI is going, "Hey, good morning, Emma. I missed our stories yesterday. Can you show me your smile? Great. Are you ready to go on a little adventure today?" And it uses the camera to gauge the attention and engagement level of the student and adapts voice tone accordingly. Then, in a little later, the AI is reading. Once upon a time, a tiny bear named Milo couldn't find his favorite blue hat. And then pausing and saying, "Hey, Emma, what do you think Milo might do next? Should he look in the cave or ask the rabbit?" And the child says, "Oh, the rabbit. Okay, good thinking. Let's see what the rabbit says." So, in other words, it's engaging the child in thinking or being aware. AI, now it's your turn to make up the next part. What happens after Milo finds his hat? Oh, John says, "Oh, he's going to fly in a dragon." Oh, wow, a flying bear and a dragon. What color is your dragon? Pink. Oh, let me draw that. And it makes an animated pink dragon appear on the screen. And Milo and the pink dragon fly too. And the child responds, "The clouds. Perfect. You're telling a beautiful story." And then, so the end here, oh, hey, the AI says, "Today you helped Milo find his hat and you made a whole new adventure. You use smart thinking and super imagination. Tomorrow we'll add more to your storybook." And says, "Bye, Emma. Dream about dragons." So the idea here is when we think about that and being able to go, even if you've got 5 children participate in making a story there, how big of a difference that could make. Um, okay, and then this was the conclusion of a previous section here. By the way, this whole thing is probably over 100 pages. In nearly all cognitive, linguistic, and emotional learning dimensions, AI with audio and vision will meet or exceed the performance of 90 to 95% of human caregivers within the next 1 to 3 years at a fraction of the cost and full scalability. It provides data-informed precision, perfect memory, 24/7 availability, and cultural and linguistic flexibility. Um, but it does point out, for example, the physical touch and tactile play aspect that as of today, that's a lacking of physical presence. We have emotional nuance; it's high but still imperfect, and spontaneous humor and empathy is somewhat formulistic today, and it's not as great. When we look here at where AI already matches or exceeds humans, we have storytelling enrichment. It can create immersive, interactive story worlds with visual audio feedback personalized for each child. Language development, AI delivers exposure to complex, precise, and adaptive language at scale. The Socratic questioning and inference building, which was a weakness this was a particular area of weakness, especially under the daycare and then the parents that they just are not good at and not familiar with the Socratic questioning. AI never forgets what the child said previously and tailors the next questions accordingly. Visual recognition with the real-time computer vision, AI knows if the child is bored, distracted, confused, or excited and adapts instantly. So these are really areas where the AI is good. Some of the other areas, the average human here, for example, reading could be 80 to 90% proficient. The AI is 100%. Maintaining engagement, it varies with the skill and mood. The sociocratic style, rare unless trained. building off the child's imagination that's limited to whoever the caregiver's exposure has been on that. So it goes into all these different aspects in quite a lot of detail. Um, and these are some of the particular strengths: reading aloud and engagement, encouraging and co-creating stories, adapting interaction to each child's development levels, interests, and moods. Now, it's very interesting. I went and I asked Gemini, I said, can you do this currently? Could you be that tutor to a child? And it said, sure. What do you just have to tell me, the AI, you have to tell the AI, you have to give it its curriculum almost. You have to say, yeah, look, these are the things that I want that child to come away with at the end. And here's the ideas of how you do it. You tell the AI that, and then you say to the AI, I want you to take the initiative to drive that, keep the conversation going with the child. If the child's not responding, then you respond. And to do that, the prompts get very complex. So this is an area where more and more what people are doing is they are not creating prompts anymore. In other words, the most advanced uh, people familiar with AI, they're not the ones telling the AI what to do anymore. What they're doing is they're asking AI to formulate the instructions to AI. So we're into a meta level there in preparing for that. So what are your thoughts? First of all, I'm talking way too much again here. Um, you can see here this is about what are the estimated additional gains in readiness of the different functions. This is independent of who's doing it, but of daily reading only, of reading plus storytelling, and what's the relative gain of adding storytelling to just reading. And it goes into every part of these categories. That's why I mentioned here that this is huge, huge here. Just adding 20 minutes a day of child-generated storytelling has a huge impact. Basic daily reading, an hour a day, what the gains are. What's your thought about this whole thing of being able to use AI to close the preparedness gap before children hit that first school year? What's your thoughts? Please. Somebody's got some thoughts. Have I just dumped too much too quick?
Bill, this is Alice.
Yes.
Um, I think it's fascinating to have AI be the teacher here and preparing the kids. I mean, it's better than having a TV or YouTube um, babysitting them, so
Or
to speak.
or here the case that we see so often that there is nothing. If you've got a single parent household with 4 or 5 children, and a very harried caregiver who is trying to keep the house cleaned up or whatever, and has very little time for the kids. So basically, kids stay out of the way, get over there, be quiet. And these kids don't get much of a help. So we're not talking about here using AI to replace the parent who is quit their job because their spouse makes enough to fund the family, and devotes all their time to their children and reading to them and asking them questions and taking them on trips and taking them to the zoo and all these different things. We're not talking about that case. We're talking about the case where the kids are just stuck in the corner and nobody's doing anything. And that is an increasing in the United States and in Europe, that is an increasing share of the child population of most developed countries now. Almost 50%. It's over 44, I think it was 44% or something like that in the US. In countries like Germany, it's over 50%. of the kids. There's a case um, in Munich where my grandchildren live that there was a documentary about the degree of poverty, even in a wealthy city like Munich. Munich's one of the wealthiest cities in Germany, and there's over 10,000 kids every school day who come to school not having had breakfast. So a famous actress started a foundation there to where they get older people who are retired to volunteer to go to the schools, make breakfast for the kids, but also they read to the kids and do things like that. But they came up with one of the examples in the winter time. Germany is further north than most of the United States, so it's still dark in the winter when the kids are going to school. And in that particular documentary, they came across some kids that were walking in the snow to the school barefoot in their pajamas. And when they asked the kids, well, why are you doing this? And they said, because if we turn the lights on to get dressed, our parents beat us. Okay. And this is apparently not an uncommon situation. And I saw another report from Cologne, and they were talking about the teachers, the problems that a large percentage of the kids in the primary school there, the teachers spend a lot of time trying to find the parents because the parents will go away for a week or so and just leave their kids 6, 7, 8 years old with a neighbor looking in on them periodically. And because they went back to their home country or whatever. So the issue is here that there's a high percentage of kids that we see in the developed countries, but even more in the developing countries. You go into a lot of the urban areas, there's such a high percentage of kids growing up in communities in sub-Saharan Africa. There's no electricity in the whole community. There's so much they don't have the exposure to even have the desire sometimes to go somewhere. So the parents are saying, I need that child to work. I think we've got some folks from Pakistan on the call here, and it's been relayed to me that already starting, I think at about age of 5 or 6, some of these kids are working in hospitality or cleaning up in restaurants and kitchens and things like this, and bringing in additional income, not much, but a little to that family, and because of the high failure rate, because these kids have no preparation when they get to school, the dropout rate during primary school, the dropout rate year to year is increasing significantly. So when we talk about a country like Pakistan having such a high number of children out of school, a lot of those children went to school for a year or 2 years, but they were failing so miserably that they and their parents concluded, why bother? What's the sense of this? It's not getting me anywhere.
The
And
thing is, Bill, that those children live in slums outside
yes,
the city.
yep.
So how do we get the technology to the slums?
Well, the I think the answer to that is the equivalent of daycare. Even if we look at the U.S., we have two options. One, we can make low cost devices available that a family could pick a device up, and so if you're going to stick your kids in one room and turn the TV on, put them in that room with a an Amazon Echo 15 or whatnot device that sees, hears, speaks, and can do exactly what we're talking about. And so it can take care of the kids. It's a combination nanny and tutor. But the probably the more preferable one is in many of these communities, these poor communities that are very often single parent household. You'll get 4 or 5 mothers that will pay a neighbor to just to watch out for the kids, and they put all the kids in the one apartment, or maybe they call it a preschool, but a lot of them are unregistered, unofficial preschools. But the idea is you collected up 10, 15 kids, and then you could put a device there. So this, I think, is the solution here that we'll see. I think it's in South Africa. They actually have there's a thing called Khan Academy Lite that does not require an active internet connection, for example, and it runs on a roughly $50 Raspberry Pi server and can be used with very low cost tablets. So it's used in some parts of the United States in prisons where they're not allowed to have the real connectivity. And what they do in the case in South Africa, I think, is they do what they call sneaker net. So they have in that server, there's a thumb drive inserted in that, and then the that is collecting the it has all the current lessons, and then it collects the progress of the individual students are collected on that thumb drive. And then once a week or so, somebody on a bicycle or a motorbike comes by and does swaps out the new thumb drive with the previous thumb drive, and so they're able to keep going. It's a sneaker net network on that. So there are, I think we've got to be uh, we can't just go and say, oh, we don't have this or we don't have that, therefore we can't do anything. I think what we've got to do is be innovative, look around. If we raise the question of what the issues are, we'll get people to focus on, okay, how do I overcome that particular issue so that we can make it available as widely as possible. As I mentioned, I started off with the idea of not thinking AI would be a better solution than the human teacher, preschool teacher in this case. I started off thinking the AI would give me some percent of that additional success of that preschool teacher. So I think that's the way we have to look at it when we look at dealing with the slums. And the slums are much easier to deal with because you're adjacent to areas that have electricity or have connectivity than some of the rural communities. But more and more with Starlink and other satellite-based solutions there, we can provide kits that would have the equivalent of the server. And keep in mind, you don't have to have for the preschool, you don't have to have a tablet for every child. You can sit there and you've got one flat screen monitor on the wall with the connection and the cameras and the microphones and so forth. And so the costs can really be relatively low, especially for kids where they have nothing. The alternative is nothing. And so I think here we can already start. In fact, I think there are. It mentioned to me a couple of names of, I think, test schools that are testing the ability to do this with what's available right now. Because all it takes is to be able to go and set up the prompts that tell the AI, hey, you have to take the initiative. You're in charge. uh, Teach me, tell me in language, foreign language studies right now. That's very hot that you're able to go and tell the AI, I'm trying to learn this language. Test me, find out what I know, find out what I don't know, and figure out what's going to get me the fastest to be fluent, and then help me learn that. And anytime there's more than so many minutes of silence, you take the initiative and take me to the next point or help me get by the next step. Okay. So I don't know if that answers completely the question on the as far as slums and the community.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yeah. And keep in mind the thing we have to realize, we can't say that we can't do anything until we figure out how we're going to serve everybody. We've got to go and take from what we've got and say, how do I increase the percentage of children every year? Let's increase it more and more until we hit 100%. But we've got to grow it as quickly as we can. And right now, one of the biggest problems we have, roughly 50% of 10-year-olds in the world who are in school, the ones in school can't read. Roughly half. That's based on the study that was done by a combination UNESCO, UNICEF, and the Gates Foundation in 2022. Um, that came up with the statistic on that 2 out of every 3 10-year-olds in the world can't read. But when you go into a number of the sub-Saharan countries, it's up to almost 90% of the 10-year-olds can't read. So um, there's a lot we can do, and some of it can be really very innovative. Ghana had a situation where they were only able to support about half of the students. They could only provide secondary education to about half the students that qualified for secondary education. And what they did was they took all the vacation time in the year and they grouped it together and divided the year into 3 parts. And they said, fine, for 2/3 of every year, every child will be in school. So the 1/3 of the year, children are not in school. And by rotating those, by putting all those vacation times into a block, they were able to increase it so that they were now able to support 75% of the children. Instead of 50, they did a 50% increase in the number of children that the schools could accommodate for very little additional costs. I think it was something like $5 billion or something like that. But you're thinking a whole country. Now we're talking about a whole country and a whole student population. That's a very small amount of money. So those kind of innovative ideas, we just need to say, this is what we got to accomplish, and we can come up with the ideas. But I'm going to try to take this. One of the problems that I run into with in the past with ChatGPT has been, how do I take a thread that's, actually this one has several hundred. I spent like 3 days in exchange to develop all this. I actually have it in ChatGPT, in Claude, in Gemini, and in Perplexity. I did it in all 4 of those. And um, how to get the results. Gemini's easy. You do a deep research and you hit a button on the end and it says, hey, convert that over to a Google Doc, and it does it in 1 step. And then you can take these things. I've taken it over and I've had it create audio overviews, for the example of these things. But there's so many details, so much detail in the studies that led to the conclusions. That's I want to be able to show everybody all the different steps and progress that did along the way to get to these conclusions. Okay, but anyway, we are almost an hour and a half in, and I wanted to what this did is said we could totally close the gap. If we take the United States, for relatively little money in the US, if we put every preschool and we went and said we're going to provide them with the tools for this, we would be able to basically have every single child coming into the school system grade level ready for that first year. Now, what are your thoughts on how big an impact would that be if all of a sudden the children who are coming into school otherwise 2 years behind are now coming into school up to 2 years ahead of the average expectation of kindergarten?
Hey, Bill. Good morning, everybody. I think with the addition of, like we said, the quality of access of technology, I also think in regard to who we are and what we stand for, as far as who do we talk to, who do we influence for this, is also something that can be quite impactful because, of course, we're not the one who would set a global mandate for something like this for lower cost devices or, to implement this kind of AI technology in preschools. But I do think that it would be highly impactful as far as what we're looking at maybe within the next 5 years, if we're looking at a generation of preschoolers who are entering into their primary schools and actually being ahead, what we could see for them going into their high school years, you could even see a child who is completing courses by their senior year to obtain an associate's degree. And that, as far as socioeconomic status, would definitely upgrade the advancement of this child in their individual life.
Yes, there is a point. Let me see if I can pull it up where this thing it came and it went and looked at the ROI. Uh, let's see. The ROI uh, was mind-boggling. Um, okay, this is going on to the transition between preschool and the high school. Let's see. Um, Long-term effects. That's still in that school there. Okay, this was looking at uh, okay, this I think was Pakistan. So um, yeah, this was looking at the costs and the comparison and the what the different education workers get in the different schools there in those countries. Um, By the way, noticed here, this thing came out. Hey, would you like this integrated into the existing PowerPoint or policy brief as a new slide or annex? And so I say, yeah. It generates a downloadable PowerPoint slide for me. What you saw, it generated. I just with a, it came out and said, hey, we've been having this conversation and discussion here what I could do to create these things, um, and it came out what the costs would be and so forth. But I'm wanting to show you there's the return on investment on the AI model. Um, it blew my mind. It's 75 here it is. Okay, this is the ROI. If you're going and paying a daycare, just a daycare person just to watch out for the kids, versus nobody just sitting the kid in a room in their home, you get a 2-to-1 return of over cost over time. But it would take the break-even points 20 plus years, if at all. Uh, in a professional preschool, the looking at the costs, this is a societal return that you would have for that investment that we're talking about up here. It's a 6 to 10 to 1 in return, and you're getting your return in 15 to 20 years. The advanced AI, looking here at the total 3-year cost, and this is keep in mind that's for the person, for the facility, as well as the AI equipment and software, and this would return 600,000 to 1 million on less than a $10,000 investment. That's a 75 to 150 to 1 return within 3 to 5 years. So, these are the things where I think we need to take all these things and put it into the presentation that can be made to the press, the education journalists, because I think these kinds of numbers are going to cause them to go and just raise a lot of questions, but also to be able to present to school districts, to NGOs that want to make a difference. We can probably create incentive programs and competition type of things, so that we challenge. Because if we got a school district that historically has never managed to get 10% of their kids to grade level, and all of a sudden here they're getting 80, 90% of their kids to grade level at a fraction of the cost, without, or maybe the same cost that they have now, but they're getting that much of a greater result out of that. Uh, this is um, I have to say this would cause every other school, if you got 10 schools to all try this, and all 10 schools came out with 70 to 90% of students at grade level, given that we've only got two states in the country that have more than 50% of students at grade level, that this is going to be the news of the day. And it's going to put every other principal on notice. Okay, it showed here 10 out of 10 principals were able to do it. What's your excuse? And it's going to put so much pressure on principals to achieve the same results, especially if their students are from the same socioeconomic background. They can't go and say, my situation is different. We're taking that excuse away from them. Okay, so last comments, please, on the preschool part, because I want to go into now, because there's a big problem between the preschool transitioning into the formal schooling education. In other words, what are the problems other than the preparation to get started? What are the other problems that cause kids from certain backgrounds to be less successful in education? And what can we do on those in that regard? So last comments, please, on the preparation. Do we all agree this would be the killer thing? If Rotary was able to go and drive this initiative, that this would just do wonders for the reputation of Rotary. If we got one country like Ghana or Rwanda, or one country in Africa that have that country jump up into the ranks of the top 20 countries in the world in education by doing this, and we got in a couple of cities in the US to jump up. Yes, Marisa.
Maria, thank you so much, Bill. I apologize for coming in a little late. I believe that Walter would be very interested for Kenya. I do,
Mhm.
Walter Akombo, and
Yep.
we're looking forward to having a meeting with you
Yes.
at some point, and to
Yep.
getting our diaries together, maybe with Joan also, hopefully.
Yep.
So I think it's wonderful what you're thinking about. And also, I just want to say that the local solutions, even in the case of Water for the World, where we're looking for boreholes, but just to give you an example, Walter asked me the other day if we could raise money for two donkeys and a cart. Well, we had enough for a cart, but not for the two donkeys yet, so that's still in the process. And what that will do is to bring water in jerry cans that is clean to certain people just around Lake Victoria, where we haven't got a borehole yet. And I loved it that there was that, individual thought for what could serve that particular community at this time. That's very, very low key. It's just serving them for what they need right now. And I really acknowledge you for this presentation. I think it's fantastic. I put a note in the chat for you in case you're not aware of Jackie Sicoli, from the Global Impact Network. She has a program called Footsteps to Brilliance, and I'm sure you'd want to get in touch with her if you're not already. And the spirit of the game that
Yeah.
she's involved in, and then you have the global conversation there
Mhm.
too.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we will talk in the next couple of days. Well, I've been in touch with Walter on that. And the just so you're aware, part of our overall strategy is when we help people become capable and gain confidence. And if Rotary is seen as being uh, local heroes on the ground, if you would, and bringing about change, then you get much more positive reaction to all the other things we want to do because we've established a degree of track record. One of the initiatives here, and I'm not going to go into too much today because it's sort of beyond the AI scope, but because of the UN Summit on Education a couple of years ago, and that brought out this 2 out of every 3 10-year-olds unable to read, was the idea that it actually originated with some 8 and 9-year-old children, and then spread to some 16-year-old children to organize a global readathon. In other words, to get the Secretary General of the UN and the ministers of education that are all cooperating with UNESCO to call for every child in every school, every student at all levels to participate in a global readathon to demonstrate their resolve, in this particular case, to overcome the education losses due to COVID by just reading 40 minutes a day for 1 month. Just that 40 minutes a day for 1 month, and then having Rotary and Lions clubs and others encouraging local businesses and local people to incentivize their local students, their own kids, to maximize their reading by pledging a small donation for every hour read in a local school or a local classroom. And that money would be earmarked for a project to reduce the number of children worldwide who are not in school due to poverty. And the idea here is if all of the ministers of education call on all the schools in their countries to participate, and the teachers associations in all the countries call on their members to promote this in their classes, that we could achieve as much as 50% of students worldwide participating. And because of the massive participation, we would expect the media to really be talking this up and do it in a way where we report the progress week by week of how schools are doing, what percentage of the students are reading at what average number of hours. So we create a competitive situation among schools, even to the point of having maybe some corporations offering competitive bonus pledges, if you would, that they would pledge, oh, our company will donate so much to in name of the school that has the highest average number of hours read per student in Nigeria, for example. Maybe the big cement family there in Nigeria might do that. But the idea is that if we could get 500 million students around the world participating, uh, and we could just raise only 20 cents or 30 cents, not from one donor, but from all the donors for a particular school, but on average across the world, 20 to 30% pledge for every hour read. At 40 minutes a day, 500 million kids, 40 million minutes a day is 20 hours in a month. 20 hours times 500 million kids, that's 10 billion hours. If we raised only 30 cents on average, and in the US, in some pilots, we've seen that the average is running around $5. But if on a world scale, if we were only able to raise about 30 cents, that would be $3 billion. We would probably be able to reduce the number of children not in school worldwide due to poverty by 10 to 15 million with that one month effort. So that in itself is going to be mind-boggling, and will get everybody will be talking about the result. If you got half of that, if we raised, or even a third, if we raised 10 cents only a billion, or we raised 30 cents, but we only got two-thirds the number of students, we only got 300 million instead of 500 million participating. There's a lot of different ways you're going to hit a number that going to cause people to go gaga. Now, in alone, that sounds like, wow, you could have that impact in that short amount of time. But the real secret is the month after that readathon takes place. Our ambition is to cause every community in the world to hold an honor ceremony, to honor every student who participated in the readathon as official global citizen heroes, because the hours they read led to the raising of the money that so dramatically changed the lives of millions of the world's poorest children. So imagine here now, we pump up the proudness factor that those children who participated at readathon, and maybe they ended up getting a t-shirt or just a wristband saying that you're a global citizen hero, and to just make them so proud, get their whole community going and saying, you're just so great, that these kids are going to be there saying, what can we do next? What can we do next? Maybe it's water. Maybe our community needs water. Okay, let's do that. Whatever it is, doesn't make any difference, because these kids realize they can do something. They can make a difference. So that's the kind of strategy that we are looking to pursue. Okay, and next week, in the week after, up in Calgary, when we have our Rotary World Convention, that's what I'm going to be pitching here to try. Unfortunately, our president-elect resigned 2 weeks, 3 weeks before he was going to take office, because I had already talked to him and he seemed very interested in this kind of an initiative. But I think here we were ready to go. We thought we were ready to go and do this in conjunction with the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, which was the year 2020. But if you recall, in 2020, in February, is when all hell broke loose with COVID. And that's when all the schools started to shut down and around the world. And you can't really do a readathon in schools when the schools aren't in present. And we're still recovering in attendance. The attendance globally is still down considerably from pre-COVID times. But we still can go out and say, hey, we need to have a global demonstration of the global resolve to overcome the losses due to COVID, and this becomes an excuse. But what it really is, it's an excuse to declare a third of the youth population of the world to be heroes and promote that pride, so that they will be more active in bringing about the change in the world that we're going to need as we go into these really aggressive times. Anyway, any thoughts about that? Just comments about that quickly, because I want to jump into here for the last segment of this session. And I want to talk about, after we get through the preschool and not into just the events like the readathon I just mentioned, but on the regular school from K to 12, uh, how do we have the impact there? So, but any thoughts that you might want to mention on what we've discussed so far, either the preschool initiative or the idea of the readathon initiative, please.
So I had my hand up, so I'll go first, if
Oh,
that's okay.
yes, I'm sorry, I don't see you because uh, oh, I see. I needed to look up at the top there. Okay,
No,
sorry
that's
about that.
okay. That's okay. So thank you for all the work. It's amazing when you see it. It's like, oh my gosh, we are in 2025 and we're dealing with such basic things that happen in communities. So I was going to mention about the whole idea of recognition, but you already actually answered that question, because it was like, okay, I love the vision of how big it is, because if you go big, you're at least going to have some sort of impact. Doesn't mean you're going to reach those numbers. You might. So I'm happy that there is a recognition component to it. One of the things that I think might be good in the vision is to somehow, it doesn't have to be initially, because the initial thing is to keep focus on the readathon, is to have a plan to include the family, the caretakers, in some way. So not just the children, but the caretakers, so that because maybe they can't read, or they want to be involved in some way. So I think part of the plan, uh, the bigger plan is to include something like that, so that they become part of this pride community. We would want to use that term. I think that's taken already. But this sort of celebration of reading community. So that will be something I think that would be needed. You did ask me if I wanted to participate, and so the answer is yes, I want to participate. I like what I hear. So, and I'm very sad that there are so many children who don't have access to reading mechanisms. So, I have a soft spot for children. So there
Yeah,
is.
just to hear in the answer, if you, I think I thought I mentioned it, but maybe I didn't really delve into that. When we talk about these, that we actually gave it a name. It's the Honor the Readers Day. So the event that would take place in the month following the readathon is Honor the Readers Day, and
Mm,
honoring them as the global citizen heroes. But as I said, do it in a way where we make them so proud, but we also make their parents so proud. We make the family so proud. They're so
mhm,
proud that their child is being honored in this fashion. Uh,
mhm.
and maybe that's coming up with T-shirts is, my child is a global citizen hero. You can come up with all kinds of things. We had discussions on these, and just looking here at the US on things like this, that maybe you get the mayor, the local mayor, or a local businessman to make a dinner and invite all the kids who participated or who read more than a certain amount. That you have to just keep piling on the recognition, uh,
Yeah.
so that you create an envy. You want to make the ones who didn't participate this time envious of the ones
You
who
mean
did.
inspired?
Inspire. Okay, we can use that word, but underneath it's envy.
Yeah.
and
I just
and
want to say something too, Bill. So the readathon sounds really good. It sounds so logical, but your organization is called Dare to be Great. So if you have initiatives, it would be been good to say like Dare to be Great readers, Dare to be Great water. You know what I mean? Like branding
yeah,
the name.
yeah.
But anyway, that's a
The,
suggestion.
the the Dare to Be Great was not in the foreground here. I at the time was the vice chair of the NGO Committee for Education, Learning, and Literacy at the UN. So
Mm,
we were somewhat UN focused when we were looking at that. We were saying, okay, we got to have a place to house it. Even when we just put it generically under the name Rotary, Rotary came back to, you can't put stuff on generically under the name Rotary. You got to put
mm,
it under a club name. And so it was around that time that we changed the name to Dare to Be Great, and came up
mm,
with the idea for that. But we do have other things we're looking at. I represent at the UN the Italian Diplomatic Academy, which is the one of the biggest organizers of model UN events around the world. Our database of alumni is about 100,000. And we uh, so um, when we have these conferences, and we do them now literally all around the world, when we have the conferences, at least the ones here in the United States, I'm usually speaking at the opening or closing ceremony, and I challenge the young people, and we started to put together a group of young people under the Dare to Be Great movement idea, and encouraging them to come up with great ideas. Our whole philosophy is, we've been looking and saying, why Rotary alone does about 1 million projects a decade. If we look across NGOs, we do over 1 million projects related to the SDGs and issues in some way or form every year. And yet, why is it that we have basically nothing to show for all that effort? If you go and look at the World Bank statistics, or if you look, next month we got the high-level political forums coming up at the UN, where it's almost like the report card on what's going on around the world relative to the SDGs. And last year they had to announce that there's fewer than 20% of the 169 SDG targets that have even a chance to be achieved by 2030, which is the goal. And in reality, I understand we're now down to only 16% that have any chance of being achieved. And we have twice that many. We have approximately more than 33% of all of those targets have made zero progress since 2015, zero, or have fallen behind. And unfortunately, that's almost all the important SDGs. We are actually behind where we started. And so how can that be with these millions of projects going on per decade? How can it be with all that effort, we're making zero progress? And what we found is because nobody is trying. Now, when I say that, it's not that people aren't working, but nobody is trying to achieve the SDG goals. We can't find any projects that have as their goal to resolve a major world issue by 2030. So we see here almost all the projects out there are not even aimed at that goal. They're aimed at dealing with the symptoms. They're aimed at dealing with the consequences. They're aimed at dealing with the victims of the problems. And as a result, we don't make any progress against the problems. So next year, the problem is there and even bigger. That was one problem. The other problem that we found is this grassroots focus, this local and regional focus is a major cause of not making any progress. Because I take the example of Rotary. Rotary basically says to our 46,000 clubs around the world, go do some good. Do we pay any attention? Do we help the clubs? We say we'll give you some money, and we'll give you back a third of whatever you send to the foundation. But do we really bring together the expertise so we can make expertise available to the local communities? What do we do? Do we assume every local community has all the expertise and skills and resources that they're going to need? How can we imagine that? There's a book here called Bowling Alone by a professor at Harvard University. And it's talking about how in the 1960s, the mid 1960s, communities started to unravel. Clubs like Rotary, organizations like Rotary, like Lions, religious organizations, political organizations, all membership organizations, the membership started to collapse. And a main part of the reason is the mobility that the car provided, that the TV that exposed you to what's going on everywhere. You became less and less dependent on your physical local community where you're at. And some organizations recognized what was going on and said, hey, our central organization, we've got to provide some more value added to help our local districts. But most didn't. And all the ones that didn't are in the membership problems that we see in many membership organizations today. And to see the value of economies of scale, we only have to take a look at organizations like McDonald's. Now, some people say, "Oh, McDonald's, that's the evil empire out there. They're coming into neighborhoods and they're killing off the local restaurants and whatnot." But we have to remember one thing. They centralized a lot of functions for economy reasons, but they don't eat all the hamburgers in their headquarters. The entire central functions exist for one reason only, and that is to maximize the success of their local chapters. They exist only to maximize the success of those local restaurants and those local managers. That's the only reason they exist. And this is why we see if I go to France, hey, I got a slightly different menu than if I go in the United States. If I go to China, it's a slightly different menu again. So the thing that we have to look at here is why are we not seeing success from all these efforts ongoing? How do we turn that around? How do we assist all those grassroots efforts to be more successful? Can we provide them with supply chains to the materials they would need? Can we help them with public awareness? Because instead of going and saying to every local entity, you have to create your own awareness for what's needed in the world, to be able to go and centralize this, get the economies of scale. You just think here, if you got a local restaurant and you're saying, oh, I need to buy equipment. Okay, I've got to go do the research and buy the equipment on my own. A local McDonald's gets opened up by a franchisee, and they go and McDonald's says, "Okay, we did the survey of your land, the locations. This would be the best location. By the way, here's 20 or 40 different configurations for the restaurant. Which one would fit good for you? What modifications do you make? Boom, we'll have it all delivered. Here's all your supply chain to get all your foodstuffs and everything. It's all in place. Ads, you don't have to go out there and hire somebody to make the ads for you. We deliver you 100 ad templates. You pick the ones that fit your community, your culture, and everything the best, and bang, you got it for peanuts. And we'll even help you to do participate in statewide ad campaigns where you're listed, but you only pay a fraction of the cost. So it's all these things that we could do here. So when we look at a readathon, we could say to every school, hey, go do a readathon. And they're looking and saying, oh boy, that's a lot of work. We got to do this. We got to do that. Oh, we're sorry. We don't have any time. We got to do this. But if we can deliver them a kit and say, we'll handle the big publicity for you. We'll handle getting your Ministry of Education to give you the cover to be able to the authorization to be able to do that. So it's not like you going out on a limb and risking on your own. We'll give you all the how-to guides and the templates for communication to your mayor, to your local press. We'll give you all that stuff there. That's how we can make a difference in the world. Anyway, enough soapbox here on that stuff there. What I wanted to do is I'd like to spend here the next half hour maybe in saying, okay, well, what do we do right now? We get the situation that we have at the fourth grade, and I'll take my situation here in New Jersey, or let's just say in the United States, because it would be pretty typical, but it would apply to Europe mostly as well. And that situation is that the top 10% of fourth grades, schools, fourth grades, have about over 90% of students at grade level ready. And the bottom 10%, it's less than 6%. So what do we do about that? These kids are going to grow up and they're going to go on to secondary school. They're going to go to fifth grade. When I spent those 3 years traveling around the United States studying what was going on with education, the one thing that really hit home was seeing that up through fourth grade, for the most part, the kids were. Can you understand me? Okay, I'm seeing it looks like my interface here is jerky. Can you understand me? Okay. Hello, can somebody?
You're breaking up a
I can't hear
bit.
everything.
Okay. Let me see if I stop sharing this, maybe. Okay. Okay, I might have to try to shut some other things down. Sishan, I see you've got your hand up you've had your hand up for some time. I apologize.
Hi, Bill. How are you? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Uh, I have some points to raise. Uh, First of all, I appreciate you are working great, and now your idea of a readathon with AI is boosted. You boost your idea, and now you are on top of everything. Your idea is great. Now we can implement this idea to achieve the goals. You are near, very close to achieving your goals. Now the points are this, that we there are 2 points. The initial point is that to uh, produce a AI module or a device that AI we put there and it will work as a server, and the other part is the students. We require some devices to produce, uh, to give the students that they can learn. There are 2 parts now. The idea how to implement these things, we can use AI also. That every idea that we bring them devices to their homes or to their communities, like some tuition centers or something like that. In our community in Pakistan, we have tuition centers. The young girls uh, from 10th grade to their bachelor degrees, they are teaching the young girls and boys to read and write in their homes. So if those students can provide the AI system, then we can achieve our goals, the readathon, that we can complete our this goal to giving them, means that those teachers will provide the students. And we also, the point that how to pay them. The students are the parents are not uh, able to pay for their child. So we can say that I'm going to pay that. I say that I go to that teacher and I say that I will pay for 2 students and you teach them.
Mhm.
So they will bring 2 teachers there and they will teach those students with the help of AI.
Mhm.
So
One
like this, we can provide these things.
mhm.
Uh,
One thing here, Sishan, is for the readathon here. What's very interesting about, I think it was in 2018. I think it was 2018. We had a member of a local Rotary Club, Syed Nakvi, who he headed up the Global Boy Scouts for Muslim Boy Scouts. And but he was from Pakistan, and he traveled to Pakistan, and he met with the district governors of the 2 Rotary districts in Pakistan, and they arranged meetings with the ministers of education. And out of that meeting was the question of, okay, what percentage of students and could we expect that would participate in the readathon? And because we were thinking, okay, well, we announce it and it's voluntary, who's going to participate and who doesn't? And the answer was 100% of the students in Pakistan would participate because they would just mandate it. They would just mandate all students have to participate in the readathon. And so that was tens of millions of kids in Pakistan that would be presented. That was the first country where we had a discussion with a Ministry of Education. Now, so you're aware, the government in Pakistan has gone through some iterations since that time. So the ministers of education at that time are no longer in the positions they were, and we'd have to re-raise that issue. But I have talked to the head of education at UNESCO, Stefania Giannini, and just briefly talked to her about the idea because the UN needs a win. Right now, the getting ready for the 75th anniversary, the number one concern was the issue of multilateralism, that more and more countries and people are turning their backs on the idea of international cooperation uh, and the international institutions. So that they need to come up and say we can make a difference, and especially now we're seeing, whether we're looking at the situation in Gaza or Ukraine or Sudan, more and more people are coming. What good's this UN? They can't do anything. They can't stop wars. They can't. They're not able to deliver on any of the SDGs. What good are they? And so if we can help, where we, with the UN, with the support of Rotary on the ground in communities all around the world, and there's a lot of UN resources around the world as well, uh, and the publicity that can come from the UN pushing an idea, that we can raise the educational, dramatically reduce the illiteracy rate around the world. And what I described with the readathon is only one piece of an initiative we're looking at, where we're looking to get every teacher to simply pledge to get every one of their students to be able to read by the end of the school year, and encouraging all the different companies that are providing solutions to help with reading to say, get your solutions out there, give discounts, do whatever. This year is the year we want to end illiteracy in the world. And so that we make everybody to say, I'm going to go the extra mile, because the teachers, year after year after year after year, have been having the same level of literacy among their students. But if we can get them to say, no, this year I've got to get everybody, that's a different thinking. So in our club, one of the things that we feel makes our club different than a lot of other clubs is we believe we should not be setting goals based on what we think we can do. We need to be setting goals based on what's needed, and then start applying ourselves to saying, okay, how do we do what's needed? We don't start off and say we need to know how we're going to do it before we pledge. No, we pledge and then we figure out how to do it, because otherwise we're just settling for what we know. Once we get an idea, boom, we settle, that's it. We stop looking for what's better, what's going to take us closer. And I always take the analogy, imagine you're on a ship and some people are saying, you know what, I think I need to help out. I'm going to help out in the sick bay. We got some people, they fell down or they had an accident, or they ate something bad, whatever. I'm going to help there. But the ship is sinking. And what we really need is the people to work to try to bail and keep the ship afloat. That's where we really need the effort. But people are saying, I don't know how to do that, so let me go help out in the sick bay. Guess what? If everybody thinks that way, we're going to sink. So these are the kinds of things that we're trying to bring to the foreground here. Yes, Marija.
Thank you so much. I just want to share how Water for the World got going from an idea. Walter and I, so glad to see you, Walter, sat down and worked out what we needed to happen. And we wrote on a piece of paper. What did we say, Walter? You said.
You're muted, Walter. You're muted, Walter. We can't hear you. There you
Okay,
go.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got that. Yes, Maria. My name is Walter, yes, as she has said. And we started by just giving an idea on how we can come up with a project on three thematic areas. One was access to clean water, the other one is education, and the other one was women empowerment and teenage empowerment. The reason we did this was to merge the three most significant approaches together, because when we are dealing with education, you deal with education not as in an isolation, but you deal with education because it's connected to three or several other aspects. So one aspect that we saw that you can deal with education, but the other side is who are taking care of these young children. If you don't bring them on board in your project, then again, you are not like working towards your goal. Another thing is that when we were dealing with the water, we were dealing with health, because the water issue concerns the health of the children, the community at large. And most of the mothers around Africa, around the world, spend 4 to 5 hours searching for water. What do? At home, they leave their children waiting for them to come back from fetching the water. And they walk 4 to 5 kilometers away. So when they wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, they come back at 8 a.m. searching for water, then the children cannot attend school because they have been kept in at home waiting for them. So we saw the access to water is a very important aspect of helping in education. If we can access clean water, then educational side on the other side can do well. So I think this is why we came up with this project. As now, as we are speaking, we are touching the lives of more than 14,000. And it was just a mere idea sometime in September. But as now, we have actually in our database around 14,000 families or members of the community that are actually accessing clean water. And the children, more than 280 children, have access to education, have access to uniforms, school uniforms, and have access to school fees so that they can actually go to school on a regular basis. So this is why we came up with this project. I really like what Bill is coming up with. And this one is very important to us. We really need to know. And Bill, I would ask that we can get maybe a template, maybe something that is written so that we can really digest into this. Exactly, you will send us that so that we can actually understand it deep, and then we can share in our next meeting our approaches that we think can be applied in every given area, because we don't believe somehow that whatever is being implemented in Kenya can as well be implemented in United States in the same way. So depending on our culture, depending on our environment, then we can actually implement towards achieving the SDG 2030 vision. So I think that's what we can bring.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy we are here. Yes, thank you so much.
We can do so much because you mentioned about children, and we have, for example, a young girl. She's 15 or 16 years old in Rwanda, and we are helping young people get ready to be able to interview the leaders of Africa about Vision Africa 2030. What is Vision Africa 2030? That's the Africa that could be if all the SDGs were achieved in all parts of Africa for all people. And the idea is to create a competition across Africa for young people in schools to create short presentation, a 5-minute presentation about the Africa, their vision of the Africa that they would like to see and what would be needed to get us there. So we have a number of issues, things like that. We have another one here called the Dare to Be Great Challenge Competition. And what that is here is we are challenging schools to see what school team can come up with the most outrageously audacious solution idea to major world problems. And the idea here is come up with a solution that's going to impact 1 million people or more. Okay. Now, we did hear a pilot in the year before COVID hit. So in that year, we did a pilot. Jerica, you were there. Do you want to maybe just say a few words about how that worked? Okay, maybe she isn't able to hear me right now. But what?
Nope, I can hear you. Sorry, I was muted. Excuse me. Our the Dare to Be Great challenge was interesting because what we saw here was actually like a supply and demand in the child's mind to take a huge thing like global issues and draw it down and into an idea where they were truly able to construct not only mechanisms, planning, end to end for a project that would make not only their local region improve, but also they took global problems on. And as we are very cause-based, it was very interesting to see the depth in which these young people once given the proper access, also quality access of technology to be able to perform this, what we were able to see these young people come up with. And it was quite astonishing.
In fact, each team they had 5 minutes to make their pitch, if you would, about the severity of a problem and their idea of how that problem can be overcome. And given this was 2019, we had a team that presented solutions using artificial intelligence. We had teams addressing all kinds of the major problems. The thing that was most interesting, the winning team was so impressive that these 16-year-olds were invited by the World Summit of Nobel Peace Prize winners to go to Mexico and host a workshop. Now, there were 35 Nobel Prize winners at that World Summit and the heads of about 1,000 NGOs. And can you imagine here some 16-year-olds getting to present in that kind of a setting, to get to be there, to get to meet Nobel Peace Prize winners? How many 16-year-olds can say that? So this is the kind of thing that changes people's lives. It changes their definition of impossible for themselves. And
Also, I think this truly made some of them that were invited. This caused not only interpersonal pride, but this was a bit of national pride. And also, when we talk about what's going on in the home, of course, we can't exactly dig all the way through till we've reached the home, but it was very, very encouraging. The family support that came behind this, and then the community rollover that came, post this event, post their honoring. It was very, very encouraging.
yeah, and this was a flyer that we did for the year. We couldn't do it because of when COVID hit, but we want to resurrect this. And if you'll notice here, our goal is eventually, oh, here it is over here. Our goal is to be able to offer $1 million in prizes here on a competition. How many high school competitions are you aware of that offer $1 million in prizes? That alone should get
And
some
also,
people's
this
attention.
comes with the interplay of us as Rotarians, period. We are, the largest collection of civil, local and civil leaders. So this gave opportunity on the local level for banks and different local businesses that those particular Rotarians in the smaller clubs were, able to go out and actually have something to speak about, so that money, it's raised not only through the word of mouth, but actually getting Rotarians who are used to kind of just the local activity of pancake breakfasts and car washes, to actually have them involve something in a little deeper than that. So that is something also to pay attention to, that we do have a way to get all of our local clubs involved in something that is a particular global narrative.
Mhm. And the thing about it is through all those clubs with 46,000 clubs around the world. The way these work is we each competition level has 8 teams, 8 school teams competing, with the winning team going on to the next higher level, and then the winner at that level going on to the next higher level. But that means in about 5 or 6 levels, we're already into the tens of thousands of competing schools. And the idea here is that local Rotary clubs would each fund the registration of a team from their local school. And those funds would then turn around and be used for the prize money. But it takes very few levels to get to the point where we actually have over $1 million in prize money available. The Let's see. The other thing here that really got, once these kids got started and saying, we are looking for things that we're looking for audacious, we're looking for outrageously audacious, as they started to really come up with ideas that were so out of the box and out of the normal, they contacted the top experts in the world. They contacted universities and professors and research labs and things like this, and they found these people were very willing to talk to them, to find here somebody who's willing to advocate for their ideas or incorporate their ideas, and they got a support. They got advice from the top experts in the world. So here we've got kids learning that they can do anything, that they have the ability to interact as equals, basically, with the best in the world. And this is changing their level as well. Maria, you wanted to add something?
No, I took my hand down. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but at any rate, so these are just this was a side event into a little bit of our club. If anybody's interested, this is the time we're taking in new members. So if anybody would like to join us, we need here desperately for us to be able to implement these ideas. It's great to have them, and it was very sad for us that COVID really tossed a major stick in the way for us because we were so focused on working through schools. But we want to get back to doing these things that create excitement among young people and get motion, get movement going. So these are the kinds of things. So if you're interested, send me a WhatsApp, whatever, and I'll send you an application form here. We are one of the least expensive Rotary clubs in the world because our donation, our dues, is only what we have to pay to Rotary International and to the district for the different levels above us. Yes, Maria, your hand was up again.
I was just going to ask what the cost was, so if
Uh,
people are interested.
it's currently $204 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Which I think here and uh no members initial membership charge. So when we compare that, looking at the Rotary Club in New York, I think it's like $5,000 to become a member, and it's about $1,000 a year after that. So we are not about raising money from our members or through our members' actions. The coin of the realm, if you would, of our club is ideas. But having said that, we're looking at things like the readathon and being able to raise billions, but we're not raising money to do the projects. We're raising money through the projects. So the readathon raises money that we would hand off to UNESCO or others to be able to dramatically reduce the number of children not in school worldwide. Or in our Dare to Be Great competition, the prize money is raised again through the registrations to participate, and it's very low. If you're looking at $50 or so per school to participate, this is a nothing for local Rotary clubs to make a $50 donation. Most of them will pay each speaker that comes weekly about $1,000, at least here in the U.S. So it's a different ball game. Yes, Maria.
I just want to share a personal story. I was a single mother of triplets. Okay. My father got involved in the Lions and became the main fundraiser.
Mhm.
I benefited from help from the Rotarians. So for you who are from Rotary, thank you very much. And here I am at this point. So you can see where your aid took this woman many, many years ago. And I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to be in this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so back to our original thing, the education. So we talked about getting the preparation so that the kids, we've created a leveled playing field when children are entering the school system. But we see that despite whatever the problems are currently, we've got this huge gap between the leading schools and the least performing schools, and we have to close that because we know the crime rates and the inability to find reasonable jobs and everything in the poor communities is huge. Now, what can we do about that? Is everybody here familiar with Khan Academy? Okay. Khan Academy is, I think, is currently about 1.4 million students around the world are using Khan Academy in their learning. And I'll host it next time. I actually was engaged. I had some meetings with country coordinators for Khan Academy in Europe, and I headed up a team that reversed engineered the Khan Academy platform to facilitate the easy translation of Khan Academy into many languages. I think it's in somewheres around 50 languages now that it's available around the world. But the Khan Academy opens the door, and I had a lot of discussions with AI about why do we have this discrepancy, this huge discrepancy, even within the schools where the students are prepared and everything else. We quickly get into this huge discrepancy between the better achieving students and the weaker students. And a big part of the problem is, as I said, you take that seventh grade teacher and you say, well, you pledged to get 100% of your students to be at grade level. And they point out that their students are not at grade level. They're all over the map coming in. Now, there's a teacher, Vanderberg or something like that, in California. What he did is Khan Academy, what they did is in math, they broke the math up into each learning concept along the way and made it into a learning unit. And so each one consists of about an 8 to 10, 12 minute tutorial video on a single concept. And then they went and defined every learning unit that was a dependency, had a dependency on knowing something else. So, for example, you can't learn long division if you don't know multiplication and subtraction. So you have to master those before you can, before it's even worthwhile to try putting effort into long division. You got to know you've mastered the things that are a prerequisite. And the idea is as soon as you mention the word mastery, we run into the problem because different people master different things at different paces, different speeds. But right now we have cohort teaching. So we put all the kids the same age, you're in this grade, and we're going to take you as a group. And today you're studying this, and tomorrow you're going to study that. Oh, you were sick yesterday and you missed yesterday's class. Tough luck. We're continuing on. You find out how to catch up, and they never do. But the problem is after a short amount of time, every student has got gaps in their learning. They're all different gaps, but they're all kinds of gaps. And those gaps multiply as you go further because they don't have the prerequisite knowledge to be successful at whatever is currently being taught. So the idea here is if we can define all of the learning units and get them in the sequence so that you cannot move on to a learning unit until you have proven you've mastered all the prerequisite learning units. And then every student proceeds at their own pace. Now, the recommendation, and Sal Khan presented it this way in some of his earlier videos about Khan Academy. He says, okay, you start off 1 + 1 = 1, and as Tim Vandenberg from California, he took he's a sixth grade math teacher. Every one of his students failed fifth grade math, but you have to fail a couple of subjects to be held back. So he got these kids in one of the worst performing schools in California. And but so these kids couldn't do fifth grade math. At the end of his sixth grade, his class scored way, way above the state average for sixth grade, those completing sixth grade. So he took these kids, some of them were only at the second grade level. And in 1 year, he had these kids in some cases at the seventh grade and eighth grade level. And how did he do it? He said, okay, kids, you all go back to kindergarten. You all go back to 1 + 1 = 2. And you go and you take each learning unit. The first thing you do is you don't go watch the video. You don't do that. First thing you do is you take the assessment test. So the assessment test became formative assessment tests to guide what's your next step. So if you know it and you master it and bing, you get through that assessment perfect, go on to the next one automatically. Go on to the next one, next one, next one, until you hit one of those holes that you've got in your learning. And then you might say, gee, I don't know how to do that. Let me ask for a hint. And then it'll give you some hints. I can ask for another hint, another hint, another hint. Eventually, it'll walk me through the whole process. Or I can say, gee, even with the hints, I don't understand this. Let me watch the tutorial. So I watch the tutorial, and maybe that's good enough. Now I can pass the assessment. Oh, I still can't. Guess what? Ask the kid sitting next to you. Ask anybody, but you learn to take the initiative. So the student is learning that they are responsible for their education and they take the initiative. So and the teacher, who guess what? Now is no longer responsible for instruction. The teacher is no longer responsible for assessment. So what's the teacher doing? The teacher backs off and becomes a mentor coach. So just as in a sports team, the mentor coach isn't on the field, they're on the sideline. And they're saying, go for it. Or, when you're running the hurdles, bring that foot down faster. Okay, you're guiding, you're facilitating, you're guiding, you're helping the student learn how to learn. You're not telling the student how to do long division, because the primary goal is to get that student to be an independent learner who has the competence and the confidence that they can learn anything at any time. So they're learning to say, how do I go and find learning aids that go beyond what the learning aids that I get in my textbook or I get from Khan Academy or whatever? So they're learning how to get themselves unstuck anytime they get stuck in the future. And so the amount of times that the mentor coach has to intervene becomes fewer and fewer and fewer as time. So it's just like taking that little bird in the nest. At some point, that little bird, you want that little bird to be able to fly. And so it's not about you standing up there and saying, you flap your wings like this, right? It's really getting that little bird to have the confidence to jump out of the nest. So this is the thing that we're looking at. Can we take a number of these schools that have failed to get 10% of their students to grade level for decades and be able to go in there and get the students to realize, okay, hey, you go back to kindergarten, you work your way through. There's roughly 400 learning units between kindergarten and fourth grade, about 450. And so you go through them. Some you're going to go through, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, because you just took the questions and you proved you've already mastered that. You don't have to spend any time. There's some you're going to have to maybe do the hints, and they may take you 7, 8 minutes. And there's some that you're going to watch the video and you're spending 20 minutes. Okay. And there's some where that wasn't enough and you have to ask somebody, but there's fewer and fewer of those ones that are more and more difficult. Because you're zipping through the majority of them very quickly. And as you're doing that, because those children who before were standing in fourth or fifth grade and only hearing, you're wrong, because the holes were preventing them from being successful there. All of a sudden, they're zipping through and they're getting success feeling after success feeling after success feeling as they move their way through. And we're able to then go and say, okay, and now, by the way, testing. When you come to the test, the new passing grade is 95%. Okay. And those students who now get a 95% on the test, what do you think their opinion of themselves is? When we go now and we hear in fourth grades of these low achieving schools, I'm just not good at academics. I'm just not good at learning. I can't do this. That goes away because they are proving to themselves, I can do this. Right? Little piece at a time and a little piece at a time, one after another, they're proving to themselves they can do that. And now the next question is, well, so they're all working at a different pace. This means I no longer have a class, right? I don't have a teacher anyway because the students doing it themselves. They're taking on the learning and they're learning on their own. And the teacher, as a mentor coach, is intervening only when a student is having more than acceptable difficulty with an issue, or B, the student is not putting in the needed effort. In those cases there, the mentor coach has to intervene just like they would with an athlete on the sports team, saying you're not coming to practice, you're not putting in the effort. Or hey, if you improve your technique, try some different ideas on this particular piece here. Or are you eating the healthy foods that are going to help you be a successful athlete? Whatever it is. And so they're all working at different paces. But that's going to mean here now that we don't have a calendar. We don't have the teacher saying, "Hey, it's Thursday. Let me look up the state curriculum says I have to teach this tomorrow. So this is your homework. You all do the same homework." The fact that you're not prepared, well, sorry about that. And then if everybody's working at a different pace, it's likely that some people are not going to be ready for the test at a certain, if you say, here's the final exam for that year. So we can just change it and say, guess what? Let's get rid of high stakes testing. Why should it be that we give a test one day a year and either you pass or you fail based on that one day? So let's make it here that the tests are on demand. When you think you're ready, you call for the test. And you say, okay, I want to take next week's test. I put myself on the list. I take the test next week. But now the next thing is, what happens if I don't pass? Well, the difference is if I don't pass, I take a look at what were the things that I failed on. I go and reinforce my learning on those things, and I put myself on the list for the test again. In other words, I can take the test as often as I want until I fail. So when I'm in fourth grade, I'm in fourth grade. I have mastered that. I know that stuff cold, and I have confidence in my abilities. This, according to AI, this is the kind of thing that will revolutionize education, because now everybody knows what they know, and they've got the confidence to go along with it. And as people begin to learn how to learn, because one of the things that came out at the UN conference, the summit on education, was the purpose of education is not to be able to know quadratic equations. The purpose of education is to know how to be a successful lifelong learner. We know that the shelf life of knowledge is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and therefore people have to be learning continually. But we've had an attitude until now that education is just in case we dump just in case knowledge on you. And then, you're 18 years old. Okay, hey, I'm done. I'm ready for life. And then we see here that people are out there that I recall, we have a lot of things of deaths of despair in the United States in the so-called Rust Belt, where a lot of males who lost their jobs because their skill that they had learned with a lot of effort is no longer valuable. So I recall there was an airplane mechanic, and his specialty was working on the carburetors of airplanes that still were using carburetors, but almost all airplanes are fuel injected. The motors are fuel injected, and he didn't know that. But his attitude was, hey, I spent so many years learning that stuff here. It's not fair that I have to learn something new. And so he couldn't get a job. So that he was unemployed for a couple of years. But
Yeah,
this is
I want to give an example of this, Bill. It's interesting. We have two neighbors. One is highly educated, very technology driven. He calls himself a geek. I'll take his word for it. Um, and I have another neighbor who had a four grade education. His life, but when he came to Canada, he upgraded himself, like went to school and learned English and stuff like that. And so last night we had a barbecue and we are all discussing just neighborly. And it's interesting how the perspective of the highly educated and the other, I'm going to say, looked at the prospect of the world. So the highly educated one was very scared that his job was in jeopardy. Where is he? What's he going to do? Like really, sort of a negative perspective of the future. The other one is who's an entrepreneur, has his own business, and has seen that his painting business, he has a painting business, it has slowed down a little bit because of the economy and fear that people are not going to have money and all this kind of stuff, you know, was talking about, well, it's an opportunity to expand the business and maybe include this and like very optimistic, entrepreneurial. And I was just thinking, wow. Isn't this amazing? One is a technology person scared by what his industry is doing. The other one is understands what's happening and is responding to current trends. And I think that when you look at how we evaluate people, I don't. I look at people rather than education. Our society looks at somebody that's highly educated as better than somebody that's not. They don't look at the what I call wisdom that somebody learns just by doing or because they're in a situation. Just because you're highly educated does not mean you're better. It's just that you had more access to money or whatever. It's a lot of things, not just that. But it's not just about education, it's about knowledge. So if we're going into a society where I mean, I keep hearing we have to go to school still, but we're going to have a society where everything's done for us. What is it that we're learning? So, I keep saying using the word learning as opposed to education because it's sort of like education is equal to an institution. Whereas I've met so many amazing people worldwide, both virtually and in face to face, because I've traveled quite a bit. And some of the knowledge that people have is unbelievable. And yet we don't use that as part of our societal acknowledgement. We need to have layers
Yeah.
of respect, layers of positions, titles,
Yeah.
things like that. And I think, how is AI going to address that?
Well,
Number one.
yeah, let's stick away from AI for a moment, because I would like to address the key thing there. More and more companies, it never was about the education. Okay, it was always about the capability. The problem is I've got somebody I don't know and they're here. How do I judge them? Either I judge them based on the references of people, but if somebody is getting started, I don't have references. So the only thing I know is, oh, this person went to college. That shows me a certain degree of determination, or like you say, it could be money or whatnot. But generally speaking, the feeling was, okay, they are going to be more capable of than somebody who got a lesser education. And in certain things, it's 100% right. If you need somebody to be doing a lot of writing, you want in somebody never learned to write. That's a key factor. But today, in many fields, especially the fields of technology, companies are putting less and less weight. In fact, most states in the United States, they had up until a couple of years ago a requirement that you had to have a university degree to get a job working for the state. And almost all the states now have eliminated that requirement because we see people, your job, your portfolio, what are the things you've done, or professional um, from Oracle or Microsoft, these certifications that just taking a test, you didn't have to go, and so your life experience gets tested and things like that. These count much more in hiring today than a university education does, because we know a lot of people, university education just means you spent 4 years sitting somewhere and doesn't necessarily say about your things, even grade point averages. I think I mentioned here when I was teaching at Purdue, I had a student join my class as a junior. He's a junior in a university, a highly regarded university, and I found out he couldn't read. And But he was a star athlete, and so he was, can't touch him. Well, I touched him. I made him ineligible for sports, and because the university couldn't do anything on me, because hey, I donated basically my time to the university after having led a large multinational corporation. So they didn't have anything they could hold over me. They couldn't threaten me with my job, and I wasn't trying to get tenure or anything. So, and that student, we became good friends. I helped him learn to read, and I helped him get a job later on, a tremendous person. But anyway,
But I just want to say that we are at a crossroads because, for example, the neighbor that I'm talking about, he's in his 40s and he's always looking at enhancing what he already knows.
yes,
Okay. I have another of my daughter's friends. He's a young entrepreneur and has he's like my husband has ADD, but he exhumes technology. He just goes at it like he just like it embodies him. And he has one of the most successful companies because he's always learning the trends, the what is to come, and incorporating it in his business, and it excites him. So the difference between the neighbor that has gone to school for computer science and is just looking at, oh, okay, I better become better at consumer science, computer science. The other one is looking at, I know this technology, I want to be in the future, and offers it to his company. So it's like a mindset. And I guess what I'm saying is about the mindset. I'm not
yes,
obviously I like education and stuff like that, so I don't want to be down on education. I'm more talking about the problem of where we're going.
yeah.
That
There's a professor, Carol Dweck at Stanford University. She has debunked the whole idea of IQs, for example. And what one of the things that she discovered was kids who start off very successful in schools. They're going here and they're being told, "Oh, you're smart," and they feel I have a high IQ. They feel that smartness is something you're born with, okay? And they compare themselves to the other kids who are not doing so good. Oh, you must have been born dumb, type of thing. What Khan Academy found was that when they went and gave the kids who were not doing so well agency and gave them the capability to proceed at their own pace, they actually ended up learning faster and they passed those high performing students who when those high performing students when they hit something they couldn't do, they thought, okay, I hit my limit of my intelligence, and they would stop. But the kids who never made an assumption about, oh, I have this kind of intelligence to begin with, they just kept going. And I think here the friends you're talking about, this is one of the things that we see is people who feel I know a lot of stuff. Keep in mind, if we go back a couple of decades, a lot of education was memorizing a lot of details, right? We still do it in some cases. You learn history, you need to know everything that happened, what date did it happen on, and so forth, not what the logic was and why and the conditions and things. So, but these are the things that are going to change. This is why the focus has to be on knowing how to learn and confidence in your ability to learn whatever you need, because we are not going to be teaching just in time, just in case knowledge anymore, because there's too much and you don't use the majority of it. We are going to be moving more and more into just in time knowledge. And there's Swaniker. I think it's Ralph Swaniker. He's the founder of the African Leadership University, which I think they have campuses on Mauritius and I think it could be Kenya. But his goal is to have campuses all over Africa and train 3 million future leaders for Africa. And one of the things that he points out is that difference between the just in case and the just in time education, and that the just in case is out of date. He also it brings a story that one year one of his professors was not available, and so that class had to teach themselves. And when they did the review at the end of the year, the students said, "What was the most useful class they took?" It was the one with no professor.
yeah.
because they learned how to teach themselves. And when I was at Purdue, I only taught one day. And I was there for 2 years. I taught the first day, and then I realized that was not going to make the difference. So from that point on, every day a different student had to give the class. And they didn't know who it was going to be until they got into class. And the other thing is, instead of having a textbook, the first day I came in with one textbook and said, "This is the book we're going to use." The second day of class, I came in with a box of about 15 books and said, "You read as many of these as you need, and you write your own." So we can call that the Feynman technique, but basically the students had to teach themselves. And my students were extremely successful. I had a student, 23 years old, 1 year out of school, and he was making the equivalent of $500,000 a year in today's money. I had another girl, 22 or 21, 22, something like that. 1 year out, she was made a vice president of a major corporation. The idea is these students learned how to learn, and they had tremendous confidence. And when you go for a job interview and say, "Well, do you know anything about our subject?" "Well, not much, but here's the book I wrote on it." You're treated a little different. At any rate, the idea,
It-
yes,
yeah.
Joan,
I
because I
just have to
cut
say
you.
I have to run, unfortunately, but we need to get together before Monday.
Yeah.
So
I talked to Lysinka last night. I'm going to be sending out a paper with an outline for the high level political forum presentation and asking for comments. I
okay.
don't know if I'm going to get that. It probably will be midnight because that's how long it's been taking me to get stuff like that done. But I'll try to get that out today.
Bye everyone.
Uh,
Sorry I have to run.
and we've only got a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to wrap this up.
Oh,
And the key thought here is to go and take a handful, maybe 10 schools, like I say, that have never achieved 10% of students to grade level, and see if in 1 year we can have 70% of those kids, the fourth graders at grade level, going from under 10% to 70% in a state where the average is less than 50% across the state. Okay. By going and having the students go back to kindergarten, work their way through each subject, and spending our time, we watch from the sideline. We watch like there's a glass wall there that we have the teachers, they're watching and they intervene when a student is having difficulty. But if the student is having difficulty, for example, with long division, the teacher is not allowed to show that child how to do long division. All the teacher is allowed to do is say, "Well, have you watched the video? Have you asked for some hints? Have you asked the student sitting next to you? What have you, the student, done to take the initiative to figure out how to do long division? Have you Googled it? Have you looked, did you go to AI? Whatever. But the idea is the student has to learn, they've got to figure out how to solve the problem. Because the primary goal is to teach the student how to be a self-reliant, independent learner. And anytime the teacher goes and shows, "Oh, you having problems with something? Here, let me show you how." You become a crutch. So what happens here when that student is now 25 years old and they're not in school and they run into an issue? Teacher, where's the teacher? Who's going to show me how to do this? Right? That's what we don't want. We want that person to know, "Oh, okay, man, so what? That's normal. It's normal. I'm going to hit new situations. And here's what I do." Okay. So the thought here is if we can do that and invite the press right from day one to say, "We have an outrageous goal. We're going to take here, we don't have any examples in the state of any school that has shown any tremendous increase in the percentage of students at grade level. And we want to do something unheard of. We want to take 10 schools out of the 136 in the bottom 10% and demonstrate that we can take them over 70% in 1 year." The press is going to sit there and say, "Hey, there's these crazy people. Yeah, there's a bunch of crazy people think they can do this." But the thing about it is if we do it, what principal is going to say in the next year that they're not going to copy that? What principal? Because we then have the right to come out and say, any principal that does not follow that example and still has the poor result has to be gotten rid of. In other words, right now we're saying, look, we're there, we're ready to help, we got the proof, it works. If you got a better one, do it. If you can get the result, do it any way you want. But you can't not get the result and not try things that have worked. So, and that's how we can make a dramatic difference there. So that we talked about. Oh, and by the way, the expectation is that by around sixth grade, every student will be totally in charge. They will be a master at learning how to learn. And in many cases, they could go and do a doctorate in any subject you can name by around sixth grade. And so therefore, school has nothing more to offer them, at least from the academic side. So at that point, we can start saving money because we don't have to be paying for formal schooling for these kids who are now able to learn anything. We can maybe provide research centers, learning centers, or places where they can go and have access to computers or whatever to learn whatever it is they're wanting to learn. Or by then, the Starlink is going to be so universal and the tools will be so universal that they can learn anything from anywhere, anywhere in the world. So that's basically the two big things we were looking at. I'll just for the purpose of Stuart, who had to leave, I just want to mention one of the things. Does anybody here not know Notebook LM? Okay, everybody is familiar with Notebook LM. So Notebook LM lets you curate all the knowledge on a subject and put it into a knowledge base and now be able to interact with that and talk to that knowledge base and tell that knowledge base, please teach me everything I need to know about that knowledge. It's an AI tool, it's free, and from Google. And which you can get to by notebooklm.google.com if you are not using it. But one of the weaknesses there, you can put all the knowledge into that knowledge base, put sources, can be YouTube videos, can be textbooks, can be PDF files, can be articles, can be PowerPoints, can be anything. You dump them all in, and it will synthesize all the knowledge and summarize it and make it available to you, and you can talk to it and into the sum of that whole knowledge on that subject, whatever the subject is. Well, one of the things that's frustrated me, and then you can go and say, oh, hey, Notebook LM, will you make me an audio overview of this body of knowledge? And I can say this angle of this body of knowledge, this part of this body of knowledge, or can you do it from the perspective of something or from this audience? I want it, can you go and have a discussion of this content for a particular audience or for a particular purpose. And it will create an audio overview of two people talking together. It could be something that I'm almost out of time here, but I'm going to just take a second because I think this is valuable. And it should only take a second. Okay, so this is Notebook LM, and you can use it for all kinds of things as a learning coach and so forth and so on. And let me see this. Oh, this was not a good choice, I think, because oh no, okay. You can see you can have in the free version up to 50 sources. They can be entire textbooks. In the version, $20 version, which gives you a lot of other advantages and Gemini and other things as well, you can have up to 300 sources. So you could put up 300 sources, books about quantum physics and videos and tutorials and everything. And it will synthesize it, everything and give you the capability here to chat with the that subject area. And it will give you the capability to create a deep dive conversation between two hosts. And I can go and come in and say, focus on a specific source, a specific topic, or a specific audience. And I can just generate this type of a thing. But it gives me the capability also to do things like mind map. And so I can come in here and say, okay, child development, Bluestone's defining development in early childhood. Let me go and I can drill down on that, and we'll drill down into further the early childhood years and different periods, brain development, guiding principles. And at any level, I can click into one of these and it will go through the sum of all the sources that I put over here. And it is now going to discuss what these sources say about early childhood years in the larger development context. So it's now pulling out of all those sources this knowledge relative to this specific aspect over here. And I can do that for all of this. And so here's what I get out of that. And now I can scroll down and see that this is giving me lots of information, and it'll actually give me the actual original quote and from what source, that where did it pull that answer from, and so I can see where that source is. So if you're doing a PhD on a subject, imagine how helpful that this could be. Now, I just want to show you one other aspect here, and you can do crazy things with it. So, for example, this one here was this Italian Diplomatic Academy, which I mentioned that I represent them. And wait, it didn't. Okay, so this here is the website, their website. And I went over and I said, okay, I want you the instructions. I gave it the instructions. I said, review this website and critique it and tell me how I can make it more effective. So this is just loading that conversation, that podcast here, and I'll play just a minute or so of it and show you something here that is really um, really impactful of what this enables. Come on. Okay, here we go. So this is 13 minutes. The one I did on the education was about 42 minutes, so you can get a sense. So just play a couple.
So today we're going to be doing something kind of different.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at a website.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of critique it and give some constructive feedback.
A website audit?
Yeah, exactly. So the website we're looking at is the Italian Diplomatic Academy.
The idea?
Yeah. And we're going to be looking at it from the perspective of, how effective is it at communicating its mission?
Okay.
How effective is it at, attracting potential students and partners and informing the public?
Yeah, it's their digital front door.
Exactly. So first impressions.
Yeah.
When you land on the homepage, the first thing you see is this big, bold Iscrividiora.
Oh, yeah. That's that classic enroll.
So just from this part alone, anyone who's maybe this is the first time you're seeing that, what's your impressions? Yes, Maria.
Well, it means that you don't have to employ somebody to help you do that. I mean, you can actually work with AI,
right,
to come up with the solutions that you're looking for.
So it'll do all the research for you. You can take it, for example, if you had a water project somewhere, you can actually ask it to advise you on how to handle a water project in that specific location in the world, where you can get the materials and the supply chain, to advise you on fundraising, whatever it is that is of interest to you.
I've worked on our mission statement with AI actually over the last couple of days.
What was that?
I worked on our mission statement
Okay. Now,
for Water for the World.
right. Now I wanted to show you one more aspect
Now,
of this.
call to action. You see that on a lot of websites for educational institutions. Oh, hey, our listener wants to join in. What's up?
Yes. Can you tell me where is this IDA located?
That's a great question. When we say Italian Diplomatic Academy, we're talking about an actual institution?
Yes, and according to their website, they are based in Verona, Italy, at Palazzo Pindamonti Bentigodi.
So it's a physical place with headquarters there. Does that answer your question?
It's an independent, nonprofit organization focused on international relations, research, and education.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Yes, I'm just curious. Do they have anything to do with Model UNs?
That's an interesting question.
yeah, it's definitely something worth looking into on their site.
And in fact, the website does mention Simulazioni #WhereEurope.
Oh yeah, right there at the top.
It also has a section called Italy Model United Nations Italy Mune 2024,
So it looks like they are definitely involved in simulations.
which often include Model UN program.
Okay. So the idea here is even though that created an audio podcast, you are able to talk to the hosts. Now we had a 17 or 16, 17-year-old girl in from Austria, but she's going to school in Italy, and she had to take a test on a Shakespeare sonnet. So she loaded the Shakespeare sonnet into this tool and had it create a podcast to tell her everything about Shakespeare's motivation and writing it and what the symbolism is and all this type of stuff. And then she went for a walk and she's walking and she's listening to this podcast and she's asking it questions along the way. And so by the time she went to school, then she was like the expert in the whole school on Shakespeare and the sonnet, and she got it while just walking around. So you can imagine how this is going to change the world. If I can come in here, by the way, and just come up here and to discover, I don't want to mess this one up, so let me do this for another example here. This is a new one, so it's nothing there. It's still coming back to the same one from before. Okay, so here I can upload the sources. They can be Google Docs, they can be Google Slides, websites, YouTube videos. I can just copy text to it. I can upload JPEGs, PDFs, MP3 audio files, clippings. You can upload pretty much anything. So I can go out in Perplexity or ChatGPT, find a bunch of sources, or in Gemini, deep research. But I can also just come over here and say, hey, what are the best reliable sources for uh, studies on early Okay, what are the best reliable sources for studies on early childhood education? So I submit that. And it comes back and it comes in research sources, the U.S. Department of Education, early education research, early childhood education and care from OECD, from UNESCO, from ECTA. This is a PDF from a longitudinal study at Kansas Children's Studies, think tanks, all these different places. And I just click here and it imports all these into my source and my sources. And now you'll see some come up in red like this. That means that it could be behind a paywall or for some reason I can't access it. But this is the synthesizing of what that's all about. And I can come into any one of these here, journals and databases. For example, I click on this and it tells me what is all the content is about, and it gives me the key topics that are inside of that. So research strategies, for example, I could look into. If I click on that, it's almost like doing the opposite of what we did when we looked at the mind map. It is now taking that particular discuss research strategies, and it's going and doing on only that one source now, though. It's only bringing in from this one source. And again, I can come in here and it will show me the exact content on the exact page that gave me the detail on this. And look at how detailed that is just on how it's doing the research. And then I can turn around, save this to a note over here that then I can come in. And I can do one click to get a briefing guide on the entire sum of all these sources, a study guide, frequently asked questions on the subject matter at hand here. Okay, so now the
Excuse me,
thing.
I'm so sorry, I've got to drop off. Thank you, everyone, and this was an extraordinary presentation. I look forward to next week, and I will check out the video for the tail end of this. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Bill.
Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, so at any rate here, this basically is what I wanted to show you. Ian, you have a question or comment?
Oh yeah, I just loved in the Notebook LM when you asked it a question, and slight delay. That's a really good question, and then it kind of searches for the answer. The way it maintains the continuity,
Right.
but does your usual school teacher type thing of keeping the thing going
Yeah.
until it has an answer and then gives you the answer.
Yeah. Also, what's very interesting to note is when you interact, you interrupt the hosts, if you would, in the presentation they're making, and with a question, and they answer the question. If later
Yeah.
on they go back to their original podcast and they're doing their podcast, and at later on they say, "Oh, and hey, this relates to the question you asked earlier." It
Right.
remembers and it reconnects that here. It's amazing here to see. But one of the things that I find most frustrating is that I can chat now with that whole body of knowledge, but I can only chat by typing in my questions here. And
Okay.
I've been asking here and saying, when can I just speak
Ask
my
the question.
questions, right?
Yeah.
Or when I have to come over here and I want to customize for my podcast, why can't I just speak my instructions that I want to do that? Or over here, when I'm looking for sources, that I just speak what kind of sources that I want to add to the source list here. So apparently that's coming. And one of the things we know that's coming real quick, perhaps by next month. Right now over here, I can create an audio overview, right? I can generate an audio overview just by clicking on generate. Very shortly, I am going to be able to create a video overview. So let's say I'm doing math and I'm doing the Pythagorean theory, and you're going to be able to come over here, select video overview, generate, and it will show you an animation explaining how the theory works. Or maybe it'll show you Pythagoras explaining it himself. I don't know what it's going to be there, but it's already in testing. It's out there in testing right now with a limited number of people, but that is coming shortly. So if we add in this capability, because once you've got this ability here to not have to type, to just be able to speak what your questions. And by the way, you can say to this, can you develop for me a quiz? Can you develop for me a PowerPoint presentation for this purpose or that purpose? All these types of things. You can come in and load it up with a bunch of math stuff and say, can you give me a list of all the learning concepts that I have to master in math for third grade in their dependency sequence? Okay. Mind-boggling. But imagine now if I can do that just by talking. Now I can just take this thing here and I access it via my smartphone, and I can go and take a walk. And no matter where I'm at, I can be talking to this entire body of knowledge, and I can ask it questions, and I can ask it follow-on questions, and it remembers what I'm doing. What are the implications of that for learning?
Yeah.
Right? As long as you're motivated to want to learn, the tools are going to be there in a mind-boggling way. By the way, that girl in Italy, she also into Notebook LM, she put her whole school textbook. And so she was able to hold conversations with her textbook to say, "Oh, I'm on page 214. Can you explain that third paragraph to me in maybe a little simpler terms? I don't really understand. Why is that important?" And do things like that. So anyway, so one last thing. I just mentioned this about the voice. Wouldn't it be so great if it could be here? Just the last couple of days, ChatGPT in their projects capability, they have the projects function. You can now add files, multiple files, into a project. Plus, you can add all the threads, all the different discussions you've had about a topic, and you put those in a project. Now, and you can now talk verbally to that sum of the body of knowledge of everything you put into that project, all the previous discussions you've had, all of the research papers, the books, the PDFs. You cannot put YouTube videos in MP3s in yet. Anything that's text. So you can put in a PowerPoint. You can put in, as I say, PDFs, any kind of Word docs, and so forth. And you can talk to it. So that, what I'm saying here, wouldn't it be great if you could just talk to it here? It's already available in ChatGPT since 2 days, I think. The one thing I would caution is it's the quality of the speech leaves something to be desired. It breaks up a lot in the speech. It's good that you can understand it and all, but it's not as smooth as I think it will be shortly. And when I was trying to do it yesterday, I very frequently got the servers too busy, I couldn't upload my files. This morning I had no problem. I was able to upload the files. So, and that could be something you have to have your $20 subscription perhaps to get to that. I'm not sure. But that all of this is coming very, very soon. They're expecting that you're going to have that full ability to just talk to any body of knowledge about anything within 3 to 9 months. Okay, final thoughts, and we are going to end this session at 3 hours and 17 minutes. Let's not make it go over 3 hours and 20 minutes. So, any final thoughts and comments?
Oh, just to let you know, there's a new AI that's written on the basis of a crypto coin called Internet Computer Protocol. The AI is called Caffeine AI, and just this is a secure thing that doesn't take any of your information, or at least if it does take your information, it keeps it to itself. So, until somebody has the quantum computing level to crack that, that's a secure AI. If there's something you need to do with AI that involves a certain level of security.
It may be also interesting to note, we have custom GPTs that you can do under ChatGPT, basically creating a prompt with some variables so that you can reuse it over and over and over again. And you can publicize it so other people can find it. It might be one for specialized in a certain kind of research or making certain kind of reports or writing books, whatever. And you can do that. You have the same capability in Gemini with gems. But with one difference, you can't share gems. Okay. You can make gems and you can use it yourself. So you don't have to redefine. You developed a good prompt and you want to use it and you don't have to redefine it. Mentioning prompts, one of the things that's very important is that fewer and fewer people are writing prompts, making their own prompts. Today, the rule of thumb is that you actually go and have AI develop prompts for you. So, where do I have? Okay. Okay. Okay, I can't find that. There's an article out there, basically showing the way that it asks AI to develop its own prompts and the different kinds of questions that you ask. You even start off asking it to about what kind of things the prompt should try to aim for. So that was really very, very good. And then the other part is that it shows how to develop a prompt to get AI to check its own work so that we
Right.
reduce hallucinations and things like that. The other, as long as I'm here, I just might as well show you here in Google AI Studio, which is also free. It's just aistudio.google.com, that you have the ability here to share your screen with Gemini Live and talk to it about what's on the screen. So, for example, there's a demo out there of a person wanting to they have a PowerPoint, so they bring up their PowerPoint and then they ask Gemini to say, I think slide 3 is not very effective. How can I make it more effective? And at first it gives all kinds of advice and discussion about how to make it more effective, and then say, oh, but I don't know how to use PowerPoint. How do I do that? If I want to create that background or I want to do this, how would I do that? And it actually sees your screen and shows you where to move your mouse and where to click and explains to you how to use it. And you can pretty much use that with any software that you don't know how to use. Just open it in your in on your computer and then share your screen, and then you can talk to it about it. You can also do that in the webcam. That now especially useful if you're using your smartphone and you've got the camera turned on. You can be walking around your house or your garden or whatever, and then you say, "Oh, gee, where did I put that rake?" And you just ask it and you say, "Oh, yeah, it was over on the side of the garage." It'll tell you. In other words, it remembers everything that it saw when you're walking around. So you say, "Gee, where did I leave my glasses?" It says, "Oh, you left them in the house over on that table." So it's pretty amazing all the things you can do with that as well. And now you've got this thing here called Generate Media, where you can actually generate video, you can generate speech, images. Um, it's pretty mind-blowing what you can do. So in here you can actually get it to build applications for you. So you can start from a template, come in, just say, "Oh, this is what I want you to do," and so uh, you're basically writing applications, and it will write for you entire websites. If you want a website, you just tell it what you want for a website, what you want the website to do. You can ask it to review a website and tell you, and so you can talk to it about what improvements that would be useful to that website. So it will do things like that. And then the last one here, and I'm already over that. Uh, Messenger. Um, oh, no, that's not the one I wanted. Uh, Okay, just 1 second here. Okay, so I found it. I found it here. So let me get out of this. Come back. Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is Gemini, and I've got these are the various tools that I can use. Um, but for example, I've done some things on this here doing research. And just need to scroll down a little further. So I said, hey, generate a video clip of a rabbit eating broccoli. And so this is what it did. Then I said here, but the rabbit, I want the rabbit sitting up. So I said, create a one with the rabbit sitting up eating the broccoli. Well, but its paws are down here. So I said, no, have the rabbit holding the broccoli in its paws. And so this is what I got. Okay, that's like a minute to create videos like that. And the new thing is now you can create in VO3 where you can actually have talking and sound. So you can create a clip, for example, there's one that they're showing out there where an owl is flying down into the woods and you hear the wings flapping and everything. And then it meets with this little animal and down in the ground and they're talking back and forth. And then the owl flies away. Or there's an old man on the railing of an old sailing ship and he's talking about the romance of the seas, and you hear the waves beating against the side of the ship, and it's totally believable. I can say that probably before the end of this month, you're going to see commercials out there that are generated using these tools that are just mind-boggling in it. Maria, yes.
Oh, thanks. Are they shareable from there?
Yes, they've really expanded that. So the Notebook LM we were looking at where you create a knowledge base, they've now made that very easy to share. So you can share that body of knowledge with other
To
people.
to share the video, for example.
Oh yeah, the videos like this, yeah, you can download them here, see down at the bottom. This is to share.
Okay.
That would let me to share that video.
Oh, brilliant.
And I have other capabilities. I can listen if it's got
Brilliant.
audio with it. But you notice up at the top here, I can invite a friend to this whole thread here of exchange on doing what I was doing here. And one of the things that is really valuable is I can do here deep research. The deep research capability is somewhat mind-boggling now of what you can do. So I prompted it. I wanted it to develop a question: can AI fix the things? U.S. AI transforming U.S. education. So I gave it a prompt, which this prompt was developed for me by either Claude or ChatGPT. I can't remember which. So this was my prompt, and I just dumped the prompt into here. And then it came back to me saying, okay, I put together a plan, a research plan. And here's my research plan that I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to go about this. I'm going to gather the most recent authoritative data. I'm going to research and compile statistics. I'm going to quantify the annual economic and social costs, investigate the direct modifiable causes, analyze the curriculum methods and outcomes, estimate total national cost, research the capabilities, and so all these different things. And then I'm going to analyze the results. And I can edit that plan, or I can just say, go ahead and start. So it did that. It started it. And here's the report that it made for me. And I can open that report. So here's the report that it came up with tables and all kinds of this. You can see this is very extensive report that it came up on this thing here. And then I can hit a button and say, hey, generate an audio overview, just like we did in the other tool in Notebook LM. And here it generated.
Okay, so you ever feel like you're just swimming in information,
Yeah.
especially with something huge like the U.S. education system?
Absolutely. It's overwhelming.
Right. So much data, so many reports. But look, we've grabbed a whole stack of sources for you, done the digging. And our mission for this deep dive, get right to the heart of the problems in U.S. education.
Okay, so you've got all that capability, but then it shows you the thinking that it went through. And this is something that you couldn't do recently, but they've added. It didn't let me go. Okay, yeah, it did. No, it didn't. At any rate, then up here, the report, you can hit export. You can export it to Google Docs with one click, or you can copy the contents into any place else. But now they've added this thing over here. I can come over to create. I can create this thing. I can turn this report into a web page with one click. I can create an infographic out of this. I can create a quiz that will quiz somebody. Says, I want that deep research, do all this research on this subject. And now I can come in and click here and create a quiz.
I want to help my account.
Learn what's important about all the content out of this. Or again, I can create an audio overview, or I can describe my own application, what any application that I would want, an app, and it will write the app for me. So I just showed you a couple of things here, but I think you can sort of get the gist of how far and how fast these things are going.
It's exciting.
It is.
It's very.
You know, when you spend the time to go, and you can go, for example, in ChatGPT, there's a thing at the bottom where you can click and you can talk to about anything. And by the way, here's all these sources that it went through on this thing. And it shows you the sources that it read and used, and the sources that it read but didn't use in the report. And this thoughts,
good.
And this thoughts, this is what I wanted to show you when it shows the thinking. So this was, how did it do the research? It says, I'm starting my research for a presentation on how AI can transform the U.S. education system. My initial focus is on understanding the current state of education outcomes, which is the first part of the 12-part research framework. And then it says the key points of analysis. And then it says, okay, my immediate next steps involve searching the latest reports from authoritative sources like the National Center for Education Statistics to obtain the most up-to-date. And so it says, I'm now researching all of these sites for that information. Then it says, okay, based on what I found in those, here's what I figured out of all of that. And then I found out this, and I found out that. And so now I'm going to deepen. My next step is to delve deeper into the data I found. I'll be browsing specific reports and so forth. And so now it went into these sources. And then it came back and said, okay, now I've completed that initial data gathering. And here's some things that I found. And so then it goes and says, having established the current state of education outcome, my next step is to investigate the societal consequences. And so then it went into all these sites that did that and connected the education to linked all that together. And then said, to build a robust case for the presentation, my next step is to delve deeper into specific data and statistics related to these. Went to these websites. Then I'm quantifying the cost of the education failure, cost to society. So it said I'm going to do that. I'm going to be seeking specific financial data. Here's my next step. After quantifying these costs, I'll proceed to the subsequent part. And it went out to all these sources. Then it says unpacking the financial burden of education shortcomings, went into interconnected costs on health and social services. Then it went in my next step is to delve deeper into the specific data I've identified, went into these sources, then understanding the roots of the education challenges. And so you can see it went through another iteration, another iteration, another iteration, found
That
all
would have taken months, wouldn't it, for somebody to do without AI? It would take a long, long
exactly.
time.
Right now, it takes 5.5 to 7.5 years to do a PhD.
Wow,
Right?
look at
That's the
that.
standard. If you maximize the use of AI, the estimate is that it goes down to 6 months or less.
Hmm.
Okay.
I
So
just thought we mess about with our bus system. I'm just thinking of putting that into AI and asking it to come up with something,
for
then
which
tell the bus company.
yes, you can use it literally for anything. In fact, you can use it to say, what don't I know that would be useful to know about this particular subject,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yes.
people can use this to figure out what they might even do a PhD in.
Well, I'm teaching a group of Ugandans to play the piano. I've never done this before. They're in my church
Yeah.
and they want to play the piano, and there's a group of them. And I'm thinking I'm just going to take that to AI and get some suggestions how best to do it.
There's a guy out there who actually made a video describing how he made an AI to teach piano.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send me a WhatsApp and just remind me that you want to see the video, and I'll send you the link to the video on
No, that would be great.
how he uses it to help people in 6 or 8 weeks or something like that. He's able to have people, and it will even generate charts showing the keyboard positions and the
That's
finger
it. That's what
positions.
I want. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I want.
yep, it'll do all
Wow.
that.
I nearly didn't mention it. Thank you so much. That'd be great.
Right. You notice I'm still scrolling down. This thing went through, I don't know, looks like it could be 25 or 30 iterations. And it says they're finalizing the research and report generation in the end. That's when it goes out there and on the latest trying to find more details, it can't find any new details or can't find any new things it should be checking on. It says, okay, now I'm done. And now it will start to create the report. So you can imagine here, because so often along the way it says, I found this. Now I'm going to go out and check to see is it true. And I'm going to look for corroborating information or
Amazing.
conflicting information and so forth. So, you're right. Just imagine here how long it would take for you to be able to go and have it do all that research. And when you're done, to be able to have a one button click to turn it into a Google Docs, or a one button click to turn it into a web page or an audio overview, or an app that will quiz you on it.
Mm.
Right?
Oh,
It's
you can build a quiz as well. That's another
Yep,
thing it
yep.
can do.
One click, and it will. So here on the side, you can see that over here it was actually
Are these
developing.
free versions or do you have to pay for them?
This one might be in the $20, but here's the thing: you get Notebook LM plus the Gemini advantages plus AI Studios free, but it doesn't make any difference. But you get, I think, some additional capabilities in there. You get all of that for the same $20 plus some extra storage for Google Docs.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, so this here, he's going through here, devising the quiz questions, developing the question focus of the questions, planning the quiz structure, and structuring the quiz project, creates that, and then it generated the quiz. And here's my quiz. According to the report, a primary indicator of shocking poor is based on the 2024 NAEP, which is the National Association of Education, something or other. And so here it gives you the first question, and then it will walk you through question after question, and then I can even have it show me a hint here if I need be. Consider the trends, blah 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 blah, as highlighted in the nation's report card, and then I can go on to the next question. Which is another piece. And it'll walk me through here. In this case, it created 10 questions that will check my understanding of the key items related to AI and the future of U.S. education. Okay, so
Incredible.
I didn't stick to the 3.5 hours. So, but thank you so much for your attention. Hopefully you found some of these things valuable and interesting. And we will continue trying out as things become available. The speed at which things are coming available is accelerating. Almost every day, they're not even announcing changes now. You actually discover them when you're working to use these, like in this invite a friend up here. I don't know if that's going to invite a friend to join me, that we're doing this together and talking together between us and the AI, or whether this just sends a copy of this to a friend and lets them interact with the information, but not the three-way. So that's the things you find out with these things as they're going along. Here I can share a Canvas, but Canvas is another one where you can do amazing formatting or writing of computer code and just talk to it, but you can talk to it in typing. I'm waiting for the ability to just be able to speak the changes that I want made to an image or a video or a document, and it just makes the changes based on what I say. Or I can ask it and say, do you think that would be a good change? And then based on what it says, then okay, go ahead and do it, and have it do it. That will be there before the end of this year for sure. Okay.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. And I'm going to close this. And okay. So again, I say thanks and goodbye till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.